for the regulation of internship programs within the public service. Article 55 of the Constitution provides that the state shall take measures, including affirmative action programs, to ensure that the youth have access to inter alia relevant education, training, and employment. The bill seeks to ensure the provision of a monthly stipend, insurance, and other entitlement to persons engaged in internships within the public service for the duration of the internship program. The provision of the stipend in light of the enactment of the Public Finance Management Act of 2012. The Provident Fund Repeal Bill of 2021 will also be read for the first time this afternoon. The principal object of the bill is to repeal the Provident Fund Act in light of the enactment of the Public Finance Management Act of 2012. Other bills which have been lined up for debate include the National Hospital Insurance Fund Amendment Bill, the Irrigation Amendment Bill, the Health Laws Amendment Bill, the Social Assistance Repeal Bill, the Landlord and Tenant Bill, National Assembly Bill number 3 of 2021. This afternoon, there are a number of members who will be asking some questions, and the member for Loima, Honorable Jeremiah Lomurukai, will ask the Cabinet Secretary for devolution and the ASAL to explain the plans the ministry had put in place to ensure that there is constant and sufficient stock of food and relief items for purposes of emergencies such as drought, famine, and other calamities in the country, particularly in Turkana County. What action has the ministry taken to distribute relief food across the 6 sub-counties in Turkana to mitigate against the current dire situation in Turkana County, where there is serious drought leading to loss of crops and livestock, with Loima, Turkana West, Turkana South, and Turkana East sub-counties being the most affected? The question by the member in national security. The member for Eldama Ravine, Honorable Moses Lesonet, will ask the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Planning to explain why the Mzee Kamulwo Chepkurgat of National ID number 6528350 from his 1983 until retirement on 28th of February 1990 is yet to be paid his NSSF pension to date, even after his request was sent to NSSF. And what immediate steps is the ministry taking to ensure that he receives all his pension? If you're just joining us, the business of the National Assembly is about to commence. And now I will hand you over for this live broadcast. The broadcast is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in conjunction with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. My name is Edward Kabasa. On your screen now is the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Justin Muturi. Enjoy your viewing.
Let us pray. Almighty God, who in wisdom and goodness have appointed the office of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with abundant favor us, your servants, whom you've been pleased to call to the performance of important trusts in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, that one funds the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country, and of those whose interests you are committed to our church. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honorable members, as you may be aware, a report from the Ministry of Health indicates an escalation of severe cases of COVID-19 exacerbated by the emergence of the Delta variant in the country. In this regard, I wish to remind you all to strictly adhere to the guidelines that are already in place as we continue to enhance measures to protect ourselves and our families from the effects of the pandemic. Honourable members, to prevent transmission of the disease within the precincts of Parliament, I wish to remind you all and parliamentary staff that 1, the sitting capacity in the National Assembly chamber remains 112 members, and occupancy is on a first-come, first-admitted basis, save for the few reserved seats. 2, all persons in Parliament, including honourable members, should wear the face masks at all times, even when they are speaking in the plenary chamber and committee meetings. And 3, the catering department is directed to ensure that no unauthorized person or persons is or are admitted in the members' dining areas and other lodges, and that no more than 2 members occupy one table in the dining area. Members, the Sergeant at Arms Department is directed to enforce wearing of face masks at all times, hand washing or use of hand sanitizers, and observance of strict social distancing, amongst other measures within the precincts of Parliament, as well as ensuring adherence to all protocols by the Ministry of Health on the prevention of transmission of this deadly pandemic. Lastly, I direct the Clerk of the National Assembly to continue making arrangements for members of Parliament and staff to undergo voluntary COVID-19 testing and complete vaccination processes in a phased manner, and the House is accordingly guided on our members. Thank you.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
The member for Garsen, the Honorable Adley Wario. Can you press the intervention button? Yeah, that way, yes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I raise to read the petition number 031 of 2021 regarding the gazettement of specified regarding the gazettement of a specified agricultural development corporation land in Garseni constituency. I, the undersigned, on behalf of residents of Garseni constituency in Tana River County, draw the attention of the House to the following. Number one, that the Galana Ranch scheme spans over 1.7 million acres and was established in 1968 as a game and trading company before being acquired by the government through the Agricultural Development Corporation, ADC, to provide a buffer zone between Savo East National Park and the surrounding communities to undertake beef ranching, off-take management during drought, as well as for production of biogas. Number two, that through the intervention of His Excellency President Mwai Kibaki in 2006 and His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta in 2013, the Agricultural Development Corporation was directed to release 250,000 acres to residents of Asa and Kone locations near Savo East National Park, with pastoralists being granted access to the River Galana watering corridor to water their livestock. Number three, that the proposed subdivision involves 100-acre blocks totaling to 200,000 acres, categorized as small scale, 10-acre blocks totaling to 300,000 acres, categorized as settlement scheme, 10,000 acres blocks totaling to 400,000 acres, categorized as a large scale, 5,000 acres blocks totaling to 200,000 acres, categorized as a medium scale, and 1,000 acre blocks totaling to 200,000 acres, categorized as a medium scale, two under the Galana Ranch scheme. Number four, that the proposed subdivision will adversely affect the entire community, which primarily depends on the land to graze the large number of livestock. That includes herds of cattle, sheep, goats, and camels, thereby creating potential for protracted conflict in future due to inadequate size of grazing land, particularly in view of the fact that the land in question is currently occupied by the community, with the ADC occupying less than 10% of the acreage. Number five, that the 250,000 acres earmarked for the community is extremely inadequate and ought to be increased to a minimum of 600,000 in view of the current demand for grazing land. Number six, that the effort to have this proposed subdivision revised by the relevant authorities have not yielded any fruit. Number seven, that the issues in respect of which this petition is made are not pending before any court of law or other constitutional or legal body. Therefore, your humble petitioners pray that the National Assembly, through the Departmental Committee of Lands, intervenes to facilitate timely degazettement of the said land to convert it to community land for grazing and related communal use by the residents of Asa and Kone location of Garseni constituency, as well as the degazettement of River Galana watering corridor on both sides of the Savo National Park and the ADC land. Number two, intervenes to facilitate the increment of the Galana Community Group Ranch from the proposed 250,000 acres to 600,000 acres to guarantee that at least 25% of beneficiaries in all the land blocks categories are local residents for communities in Garseni constituency. And number 3, makes further orders deemed fit in the circumstances of the petition. And your petitioners will ever pray. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Sorry, did you direct to which committee?
Committee on Lands.
On lands. I know the chair is.
But the ADC is under agriculture, Mr. Speaker.
But you want the petition to go to lands?
Yeah, I wanted it to be.
For now?
There, yeah, Chair.
Well, I can say, I don't know whether everybody who has placed interventions here wants to comment on this.
Mr. Speaker, maybe I kindly request the members of Parliament from Tana River, because they know the magnitude of this matter, to contribute.
No, you can't ask me. If they are there and they have not placed any request for intervention, you don't wake, you let the sleeping dogs lie. Isn't that what they said? So we can't force them. I can see the member for Kwanza, who has some background in that field, wants to say something.
Thank you very much. The Speaker, I'm in the Committee of Agriculture, and the Kalana Gulalu actually is in the Committee of Agriculture. But I think it is misplaced to go to the Minister of Land when actually whatever he's talking about is talking about development of Kalana Gulalu. So I think he should direct it to go to the Committee of Agriculture, where I'm a member. I've even visited
Honorable Wanyonyi, the member is praying for degazettement. Degazetment is not a function of agriculture, is it?
Yeah, but whatever is talking, the Speaker is talking about things to do with the agriculture.
Yeah, but initially, before it can be degazetted, before it can go to agriculture, before you can go to farm, it has to be degazetted. But the member desires that be handled by the Departmental Committee on Lands. Is it comment on the petition? Honorable Mutua Barasa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to support this petition. It's very important, and I hope that the government is going to prioritize resolving of issues that affect the Mwananchi directly, Honorable Speaker. This is a matter that even as we speak here, the relevant government authorities should be able to pick it up so that it would not allow the citizens to continue suffering again. Honorable Speaker, thank you, and I support this petition.
Member for Mwea.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I think the issue of the management of public land and community land, as it may, needs to be looked at by the government, Mr. Speaker. I say this because, number one, I'm not sure we have a complete system or database where one can go and search for public lands, say, in my constituency. Lack of that, Honorable Speaker, has caused anxiety, and people continue to practice grabbing that was in the past. I have a case, Honorable Speaker, in Mwea, in a place called...
Now, you see, this is the problem. Comments, clarifications on this specific petition.
It's similar.
If we allow that, then it will become now... Maybe the member had a point when he talked about his colleagues from Tana River County, but because they don't know how to use the gadgets, I think, because they are from Tana River, they haven't requested.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
But we'll try to look for them. I suspect some of those ones raising up their hands are from there, but it is not done that way. Don't raise hands.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think the issue is on management of public land and community land that needs to be looked at more seriously than probably it is currently, because it's an issue out there that the government needs to concentrate on and come up with a database that one can get into and know the size and description of public land in this country. Thank you.
Member for Lamu.
Asante Bwana Spika, mimi nami naunga mkono ombi la Mheshimiwa Wario. Ili tatizo linafaa lisuluhishwe, maana likisuluhishwa hata sisi watu wa Lamu tutafaidi. Asante Bwana Spika.
Member for Ugunja.
Mr. Speaker, this is indeed a very important petition. And I just pray that the Committee on Lands, under the chairmanship of my friend Honorable Nyamai, would expedite their action on this matter so that the people of Tana River, especially the constituents of my good friend Honorable Wario, get justice. The issue of land, as has been pointed out, remains very controversial. And it was the expectation of Kenyans that with the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution and with the creation of a whole commission in charge of this issue of land, such matters will be addressed with finality. Yes, I hope this committee will deal with this matter very expeditiously. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah.
Member for Saku.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I support this petition. Initially, Galana Kulalu was set aside for agriculture. It is also the most productive land in the constituency of Garsen. But over the years, nothing has happened on that land. The land is left fallow, the community is not using. It is the high time this land reverts back to the community. And I believe Honorable Member is saying, de-gazette it. Indeed, it should have been done long time ago when the land became not usable for agriculture. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
For Kiminini.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, land is a factor of production, and I do support the petition, Mr. Speaker, that if the land is not utilized, the land, Mr. Speaker, should be degazetted. And as the land is being degazetted, Mr. Speaker, we know very well that this land is under the ADC. And the ADC is under the Ministry of Agriculture. So, Mr. Speaker, when you look at this particular petition, it will actually involve both the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Lands. And as we move forward, Mr. Speaker, ADC owns a lot of land countrywide, even in Trans Nzoia, but some of the land is fallow. We had also done a petition, Mr. Speaker, from Trans Nzoia, that part of the ADC land should be degazetted to form a university. Up to now, it's never been done. So as the Committee of Lands look into this matter, they try to expedite, because there are so many petitions under the committee. So I'm humbly requesting Honorable Nyamai, as you look into this, please also don't forget the Trans Nzoia issue on the ADC land to be given a university. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Nominee 001.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, as Honorable Chris has said, is that land is a factor of production. And when the land is held in the government custody, but it does not produce, Honorable Speaker, then it's a loss to this country. It is a loss for all of us. If then the agriculture and the irrigation that had failed, then it is just common sense for the government to degazette that parcel of land, revert it to the people of Tana River, so that they can use it as a factor of production, so that we can have food security, Honorable Speaker. There are pastoralists, Honorable Speaker. They should be, the land should be degazetted, and the Honorable Chair for that committee is here. She should actually look into all the land that is laying idle in the hands of ADC, Honorable Speaker, and degazette all of them so that we can use them to produce food, Honorable Speaker, because we have acute shortage of food in this country. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Mvita.
Mr. Speaker, something that might be correlated. On the 23rd report of the Public Investment Committee, we had tabled something in regards to the National Irrigation Board. And Mr. Speaker, I did provide a disclaimer. There was the issue of Galana Kulalu that we were going to table as a special report on its own because of how detailed it is. And maybe with your indulgence and your guidance, Mr. Speaker, because we don't want equally to come up with something else, because the NIB, who took part of that land from ADC as well for purposes of this project, have indicated otherwise. But I do agree. I sympathize with the honorable member who raised this particular petition. But with your permission, Mr. Speaker, if you could also allow him to be able to share it with us.
On how they can be used. There are so many petitioners urge to gazette lands in Kenya. Like in other places, you will find that land that was set aside for veterinary purposes, people want to gazette and share. So it should be used for the purpose that was done. I know there are so many lands that have been gazetted and people are agitating for that. If we see the bigger picture of the country, I think we should not de-gazette what was gazetted for that particular purpose, unless that purpose is no longer viable with us. If it is not viable now, our future generation will see it used, the better use for that particular land for all Kenyans, not one particular community. I oppose.
Member for Kilifi North.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Galana Kulalu, if left the way it is, will be another big land problem in this country, like we've had, especially in the coast. We've had so many problems of land in the coast. Now, the Galana Kulalu, if we don't solve it now, we'll have another problem. The petition by Honorable Wario is that Galana Kulalu should be degazetted. And they have one very valid reason. Government mandaries are actually subdividing the land and giving it to themselves without consent of Parliament as required by law. That is what is happening. There are people, secondly, there are people who have occupied that land even before ADC came. And these people are living in that land as squatters. One way of people who are there get the land because ADC is not using the land. The land that is for the farm, the big farm that the government has wanted, the 1 million, is there. And even that one, the chairman of ADC himself said 300,000 acres of the land has been taken by people. That's what the chairman said. And yet this land has not been degazetted. And yet the squatters who are there living currently cannot have access of that land. Why don't we follow this petition, degazette the land, allow the squatters to get titles to it, and then whoever wants to give to whoever can give. But let's save the people, and let's save this land. Let the correct thing be done. Right now, people are actually subdividing this land, the ADC Galana Kulal. We lost ADC Sabaki in Malindi the same way. It was given to around 2,000 people. The indigenous missed. Now, this other ADC land in coast in Kilifi, which borders Kilifi, part of it is in Kilifi, the other one is in Tana-River, is actually going the same way. Mr. Speaker, I would urge the committee, which I am a member, and I will push this, the land should be degazetted, and the process followed so that it is degazetted. The people who have benefited from ADC land in this country, very many people, because they are mandaries of government. We want to stop it this time and ensure the right thing is done at the coast by giving the land to the people of the coast. Degazette it. This land must be degazetted.
You know, the opportunity, if you look at it, I want to encourage every one of us, please, whenever a petition is presented, just very quickly go to standing order number 226 so that you understand what you're supposed to do is to make comments, observations, and or seek clarifications. And the time allocated for those comments and clarifications and observations is only 30 minutes. Now, when we make it an opportunity for debate, you know, we lose the plot. And those others who are raising hands, I don't operate that way. I don't, you use your machine, eh? Yeah, then I'm following. So don't bother. Don't bother raising hand up. Even you, don't raise your hand up. We don't, yeah, this is the National Assembly, not Garrison or whatever. I mean, member for Kabuchai.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Also, I support this petition from Honorable Wario, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the first place, if this land that is meant for ADC is already being utilized by people, it means ADC itself, Mr. Speaker, has failed to carry its duties. The main purpose why it got this. So I support, Mr. Speaker, for this legal settlement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me a chance also to contribute on this petition. Mr. Speaker, there was a reason why the government why the government keep land, huge chunk of land, Mr. Speaker. Always it is for future of the new generation that is coming, Mr. Speaker. And for some time, Mr. Speaker, people have misused land that the government have set aside for future use. And Mr. Speaker, in near future, we are going to lack land, like the generation that is coming, Mr. Speaker. And then we'll start maybe looking for somewhere where there's no land again, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I support, but Mr. Speaker, by saying that the government must be very keen for the settlement, because in this side, some sides of, like let's say Western, there's no land, Mr. Speaker. And in the future, we might migrate from Western to Kalana, Mr. Speaker, because the population there in Kalana is not large as people from our area, Mr. Speaker. So it is for future use. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Tana River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support the petition. I come from Tana River, and I know how sensitive it is on the issue of land in Tana River, and particularly in Gersen. People believe that we have plenty of land, but it's not enough for us, it's scarce. And being that the purpose that was set for that land, it's not what we are seeing, then I also support that the land should be degazetted, because people are being transported from other areas to that place, and the land is being subdivided to those people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support the petition.
Member for Migori.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this petition. Mr. Speaker, my observation has been that we have had very ugly incidences in Tana River over the past years because of land issues. If this land is lying idle there, it should be degazetted to solve the community's problem with land. It is unfair that we should have land that should serve the people, and it is not serving the people in the proper manner. So let it be gazetted and allocated to people procedurally. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Soy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this petition, Mr. Speaker, because it is very important that wherever there is land, first persons to be considered should be those who are residents of that area. And we know that the coast region is one area that has suffered heavily because of land injustices. And Mr. Speaker, I support the petition.
Member for Funyula.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. It's also important that such a matter has been brought to the attention of the nation, because issues of land are very emotive. Honorable Speaker, the Constitution, the National Land Commission Act, has got very specific timelines and mechanisms of addressing the matter at hand. I do believe the Lands Office, the Lands Committee, is well equipped to deal with the matter. Secondly, conversion of public land, because gazetted land is public land, to private land or any other form of land ownership is dictated by the provisions of the Land Act, number 6 of 2012. I do believe it should be able to guide. Finally, Honorable Speaker, any land that remains idle and unproductive, a means must be found to put into productive use unless there's justifiable cause for land banking. With those few remarks, I support the petition.
Member for Kamukunji.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I stand to support the petition by Honorable Wario. The Tana River area of Kenya, the Delta, the Tana River Delta, is one of the major wetlands of our region. And yet, if you look at the plight of the people of that neighborhood, it's that they're not able to efficiently use that land, and many of them live in poverty because of land scarcity or access to land. And I think if this particular space of land that had been gazetted is no longer being used for the purpose that it has been allocated, it is just right that we get it back so that it can be used by the community. And these are communities that are under pressure of resource limitations, scarcity of resources. And as you know, scarcity of resources is a major source of conflict. And therefore, this would be an opportunity for them to be able to utilize that land and ease some of the tension and the problems that exist in that particular part of our country. The other worrying element of this gazettement is that there are regular reports in our media that are indicating that this land has been gobbled up, been grabbed by individuals, it has been parceled out. And I think that is not right, and it should be put under control. And one of the ways of perhaps dealing with that, this issue, is by degazetting it, of the allocation and the distribution of that particular land to the local authorities in the local community. That is the best way to create fairness, equity, and justice. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I do support the petition.
Member for Taita Taveta.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I want to start by saying I really support this petition because land matters are weighty matters in Kenya, and most especially in the coast. And Kenyans and people from the coast had very high hopes in the project that the government set, the agricultural project at Galana Kulalu. And Mr. Speaker, if the project is not there and it is not, the land is no longer serving the purpose, then I support the degazettement of that land. Thank you for the opportunity.
Member for Kangundo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to comment on this petition. Honorable Speaker, land management and administration in this country is very poorly taken by the Minister of Lands. You see the activity done within the ministry, they are very peculiar. Not only the issue of Tana River, there are also other cases within the jurisdiction of this country, people are very crying. If we take, for example, in Jos Kakamulu, KBC, people came with even the mother titles. You know, when the land, the mother title has been segmented, it's taken to archives. People are sneaking to archive, they are coming with the mother titles and start to divide the people's lands again. Honorable Speaker, if you go to Drumville, again, we have been telling the Minister of Land to issue the title deed to be able to build the court, to be able to build the police, but still the officers managing the land, they don't care. So our Kenyans are crying because they are losing the value of land because of poor management by Minister of Lands, and I like to support the petition and say that we need to move faster to arrest the officers, the Minister of Lands, so that they take their work serious. Thank you very much.
I don't know whether the chair wants to comment or the chair will deal with the matter, maybe because I can say you have an intervention.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me a chance to make a comment on this petition. Honorable Speaker, first of all, I agree with the other honorable members who have spoken that this is a very important petition that needs to be handled. Mr. Speaker, I would like to seek your guidance. Another petition by the same Honorable Wario is alive before the Departmental Committee on Lands. We have already met actually all stakeholders, the petitioners, 2 times. About 2 weeks ago, they attended the committee to give more information on the same matter. We have met the Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning, the National Land Commission, ADC, and last week, Honorable Speaker, we were able to speak to the PS as a stakeholder. And when I listened to the Honorable Wario, I understand the heat on the ground concerning this matter. But I realize that what he's asking for is exactly what this committee is likely to recommend. So I would like to seek your guidance, Honorable Speaker, whether there is a possibility of merging the matters that he has raised now with the with the petition that we are just about to conclude. When we engaged him last time with the petitioners, we informed him that the only matter that this committee could not deal with was the issue of access to water points and insecurity, because this lies in a different committee. So I would like to seek guidance whether there is a possibility of merging the issues that he has raised right now together with the existing petition. Because currently, Honorable Speaker, we are at the tail end of a petition that is more or less the same. And I believe that our time is really so much valuable, and the honorable members of lands who are here can bear me witness that we have many petitions on our desk, about 5 pending now, and 3, Honorable Speaker, that I'm going to table reports today. So if you can guide us on whether there is a possibility of merging the matters that he has raised with what we already have on our desk. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Well, I'm aware that indeed there was a similar, a petition more or less similar, but may not have been taking the same, but it touches the same area. And therefore, the best thing would be to consolidate.
We know what he's asking us. Do they really know what we know? It is the regulations have a procedure and processes to follow. That's what we are discussing, Honorable Sonkok. We're not discussing how we are going to raise funds.
But you cannot throw the bath water with the baby, Honorable Speaker. They delayed their campaign funds, Honorable Speaker. You know, if you don't cap the campaign funds, it means the richer you are, the better the possibility of you being elected. That will lock out so many hustlers who are very good leaders, Honorable Speaker. But because they lack the means, they lack the money, Honorable Speaker, they may not be elected, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, as much as we discuss about them coming in late, Honorable Speaker, you know, already they tabled 1 year before the election, even if it was on Thursday. It was the duty of this House to call for a special sitting. We have called a special sitting on Sunday or on Saturday, Honorable Speaker, because now they had already arrived in time. They arrived, the regulation arrived last week on Thursday. 1 year, several days before the election. It was now our duty to make sure that because they have a bit delayed, for us as a responsible House, not to delay and to fast track faster so that we don't meet the deadline of 9th. So I said we are pointing a finger on IBC, but the remaining 4 fingers are pointing on us. Honorable Speaker, I think as you give us your guidance, please let us not throw the bathwater with the baby, because this baby is very important. Thank you.
Now, before I give the member for MY a chance to comment, but please, honorable members, from the very basics, remember under Article 118, we are required, we are actually obligated as a House to undertake public participation in whatever we do, either in our committees or even as plenary. And in our rules, we are provided for the mechanisms of doing that, so that whenever papers are laid here, bills, we refer them to the committees, after which the committees sit and agree when it is that they will invite the public to come and appear. And that is a constitutional requirement that we cannot run away from. Ordinarily, you do not also receive the documents on Thursday, and then you are required, and the deadline is Monday, and then when do you do the public participation? You must give the public also reasonable time, not less than 7 days to appear, because they must appear prepared. So, sometimes some of these things, they are not very complicated, but if we make them very complicated, member for Muhaya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance. Honorable Speaker, I also watched this and followed everything. But what I thought that the IBC chair wanted to come out is almost what has come out from the immediate speaker who just spoke before me. That he wanted to create a gray lacuna within the country and the mindset of the people of Kenya. That finally it will be Parliament that will be resisting these regulations. And you can see, if the debate would take that kind of route, then we would be blamed for having refused to deal with this regulation, despite the fact, I thank Honorable Junet, that he has pointed out that these regulations came late. So finally, the sitting members and who are here will be looked upon as people who did not want this to happen. And as they reach the ground, Honorable Speaker, they will be having a certain tint on them that they were against this particular regulation. So he's laundering himself at the expense of Parliament and the members of Parliament. I thought that this is something that should come out clear, and I want to add this as you do your ruling on this. Further, I want to indicate, Honorable Speaker, that I almost also saw the idea of even political parties being given a certain task that indeed may not have been regularized in Parliament. And later on, I also saw, let me, with his permission, Duale, speak about this, that there's no legal framework that binds us. But that is what people can speak on national media and go away with and actually just incite the public that Parliament is not doing. The truth is that this regulation should have come on time and therefore dealt with on time, and we should not be blamed like it is almost going with the chairman, because he finally said that the matter has left my desk. It's now with Parliament. You see? So it's clean, and we are that. Could you also notice, Honorable Speaker, as you'll be making this, as I conclude, that the budget he wants is, the street economists like ourselves, we have already done that, is bigger than what CDF takes in a year. So those are issues that need to be considered. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member for North Hall.
Mr. Speaker, I do share the concerns of my colleagues about the submission of these regulations for campaign financing. And Mr. Speaker, the law is very clear. And this House cannot take it for a ride. Mr. Speaker, IBC had 5 years to prepare for this. We did not pass that law in this Parliament. It was passed in the last Parliament. They had all the time they needed for this. And I really do hope so that you also send a very clear message and will set a very clear precedent for future that when such regulations are being submitted to this House, they are done within the law and within the clear legal framework in terms of timelines. I do hope it will give us good guidance to guide us. I thank you.
Honorable Chris Omalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Junet has raised a very fundamental matter, Mr. Speaker, pertaining to the campaign financing. Mr. Speaker, the Campaign Financing Act was passed, and for this law to be operationalized, Mr. Speaker, of course we expect the regulations to be developed by IBC to be brought to this House, Mr. Speaker. And in line with the Instruments Act, Mr. Speaker, the Committee of Delegated Legislation has to look on this matter and give us a report, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, as you clearly say, Article 118, Sub-Article 1B, it is very clear, it says Parliament shall, the word is shall facilitate public participation in matters of legislation. It is mandatory. In line with the outstanding orders, again, Mr. Speaker, it must be given a notice. It must be put on the newspaper for the like-minded people and relevant people to bring the memoranda so that the committee in charge can be able to look into the submissions before they do a report. And Mr. Speaker, the delegated legislation is not obligated to approve. It can as well annul, looking at the issues of constitutionality and the issues of time frame, Mr. Speaker. Our standing orders are clear that the regulations, Mr. Speaker, must have been approved at least 12 months to elections. And to approve is different from submission, because you must submit first, it goes through the process before approval is done. And on an average, it will take about 3 months. Mr. Speaker, it's like you are going to Mombasa and you are told the flight takes off at 7 p.m. So you should be at the airport not at 7 p.m., but you should be there at 5 p.m., Mr. Speaker, so that you go through the security process, Mr. Speaker, and the check-in. That time at 7, the pilot will be taking off. So the time you arrive at the airport, Mr. Speaker, at 7, the doors are closed. So, Mr. Speaker, it goes without saying that this one is dead on arrival. Because the Constitution, it is clear, Mr. Speaker, time is gone. The airport is taking off, Mr. Speaker. So really, And there's no way we'll expect delegated legislation to bring a report without public participation as outlined in Article 118 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. This is the reality. I don't know whether it was done by design or by mistake, Mr. Speaker. So this one is dead on arrival. But on an aspect of the budget of IBC, Mr. Speaker, I'm calling upon honorable members, let's not cast aspersions on IBC on budget. I think the relevant committee needs to call them and maybe give justification and ask them, how did you arrive at this 40 billion? They itemized, Mr. Speaker. If last year it was this amount, we know the population has gone up. Last year, Mr. Speaker, you are aware the elections were nullified, the presidential. The servers were not open. Does it mean the servers now, there will be many servers, because at that time we were told the servers were in Paris and they were sleeping at that particular time. So if we are going to have many servers in Nairobi, others in Paris or wherever, for purposes of accuracy, Mr. Speaker, let the IBC come before the relevant committee for the purposes of giving justification. Let's not cast aspersions as far as the budget of IBC is concerned. Call them so that justification is given. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Westlands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to first to declare that I'm a member of delegated legislation, Mr. Speaker, a committee, and this matter is coming before the committee tomorrow, Mr. Speaker, for a deliberation, and then maybe bringing the report back to the House for debate. Mr. Speaker, as usual, IBC are becoming mischievous, Mr. Speaker, by trying to trying to set up Parliament. The Parliament has refused to approve these regulations, Mr. Speaker, when they know very well they have not followed the right procedure, Mr. Speaker. They are rushing, and then they know that the time is not even on their side. So, Mr. Speaker, I believe that this matter will be well taken, processed by the committee, and then we shall bring the report to the House, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Mathare.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I thank Honorable Junet, my whip, for bringing up this important matter. Honorable Speaker, under Article 88.4, the IEBC has a number of functions that run from Article 84A to J. And whereas at Article I, 88.4I, they have the power and the duty to regulate campaigns financing. I think one of the things that we must ask the IEBC to account for is what they have done with the duties clearly delineated under 4A, B, and C. These deal with questions of continual voter registration, regular revision of the voter register, and the delimitations of boundaries, things that are very crucial for the exercise of Article 38 in the Constitution that deal with universal suffrage and the question of one man, one vote. So even as they mischievously attempt to bring the question of campaign financing and throw it, or throw Parliament and the Committee on Delegated Legislation under the bus, we must also ask them what they have done about 88.4.1A, B, and C. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, the IEBC has attempted to gazette, and we must question the propriety of the actions that they have done, because under Article 94.5 of the Constitution, it says very clearly, no person other than Parliament has the power to make any provision that has the force of law. So when they gazette and then ask us retrospectively to try and sanitize and attempt to tell us that if we have any grievances, we can go and negotiate the figures with them, I think IBC is taking this House for granted. Number three, and which is my final point, the question of public participation has clearly been demonstrated and delineated here. If IEBC had a problem with bringing these draft regulations and the Committee of Delegated Legislation delayed with it, I sit in the JLA committee, which oversights IEBC. I sit in CIOC. We have had very many interactions with them, and I can confirm they have not raised a single question on delayed questions of processing of these regulations. So I support the plan has taken off, and it is too late in the day to ask Parliament to deal with these questions. Thank you.
Maybe I think now we can try to wind down on these comments on the IBC. Honorable Dwele.
Mr. Speaker, I think on the onset, as we discuss this very critical matter, let us not injure the credibility of the election body. Because as we go 1 year to the general election, it is upon us as leaders to make sure that we give fair judgment of the body. And the Speaker, including you as a front runner in the next election, this is the referee that is going to decide, you and ourselves. Mr. Speaker, I had two issues with Chairman Chapukati. And let me start with, and I really want the women folk to forgive me, that from experience, this House has not Article 27 and Article 81 of the Constitution on the two-gender principle. The two-third. Number two, it has not. We've tried, it has not. So, Speaker, the only thing that this House has passed, which is in the Senate, is, I think, the Special Interest Groups Amendment Law, which was to cure this thing, and it's in the Senate. Minus that, an IBC and the chair will only conduct their affairs based on existing legislation and laws, whether it is the Election Act of 2011, whether it is the IBC Act that governs them, whether it is the Constitution, the Political Parties Act. The chairman is purporting to use, Mr. Speaker, an advisory opinion from the High Court in the petition number 17 of 2017, where it was between Katiba Institute and IBC, where the court said, and I'll quote the judgment, it says, ask IBC to use administrative methods in implementing the gender principle. So, Mr. Speaker, IBC cannot enforce and ask parties to present a nomination list based on a law that don't exist. If the people of Garissa, if ODM or UDA or Jubilee conducts a nomination in Garissa Township, if the followers of that party decide to elect a man, so be it. If they elect a woman, so be it. But Chepukati cannot force political parties on the two gender in as far as party nomination is concerned. That, I think, Mr. Speaker, it was wrong. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I want members to read the Campaign Financing Act that this House passed, and also Section 12 and 13. The submission, as the Speaker makes a determination, the submission and the gazettement of the campaign financing regulations, Mr. Speaker, which gives 1 year before the election, only binds on IEBC. It doesn't bind on this House. It doesn't bind, Mr. Speaker. And that's why I'm saying this House, we have a committee called Delegated Legislation. They will sit tomorrow. They will bring us a report. We can decide to agree with them. So, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Chair of IBC complied with the Campaign Financing Act to make sure that he gazetted just before midnight of the 9th of August 2021. Mr. Speaker, I did. Secondly, no, Chair, you know, my predecessor, that is not how you talk to when a member is on his feet. No, you know, Honorable Junaid is right. He's asking point of order. Section 29, you can read it, but I think, because I'm on the floor, so the matter is before us, and we'll deal it. And Mr. Speaker, let me say it. In fact, IBC has many, many other regulations they must bring to this House in preparation for the 2022. Speaker, you know, when a ranking member and Leader of Majority Emeritus is on.
Now, Honorable Junet, what's your point of order now?
No, Mr. Speaker, with due respect to the former majority leader, it was not my intention to interrupt him. But Mr. Speaker, you know, when he came late, when you get into the debate midway, you may lose track of some issue. Mr. Speaker, he said in this House of Record, he said that the 12 months is only binding to IEBC to gazette the regulations, Mr. Speaker. No, they did. But in terms of presentation to Parliament also, Mr. Speaker, the 12 months binds, Mr. Speaker. We should make it clear to Kenyans, because we are legislating on behalf of Kenya, Mr. Speaker, that it is the regulations to be gazetted by IEBC 12 months to the election, and they can only be enforced in terms of law when you bring it to Parliament, Mr. Speaker. The gazettement of IEBC of those regulations is just like gazettement of any other thing, Mr. Speaker. But if it is supposed to have the enforcement of law, Mr. Speaker, it can only be done by this House, Mr. Speaker. And it should have been brought to this House, Mr. Speaker, 12 months to the election, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to get that.
Chair, I totally agree with the Honorable Junet that the final word, the final powers lies with this House. Whether he gazettes 10 times, it is null and void. And that is what the Statutory Instrument Act says. In fact, not only for Chairman Chapukati, it's for anybody bringing statutory instruments, regulations to this House. First, he must gazette it. But the powers lie with the delegated legislation. That's why the delegated legislation, some of the regulations, they will bring it to the House for approval, like the VAT. There are some, they don't need to. They can annul and go away. Mr. Speaker, because I had the benefit to go to TV last night, and I don't go to TV unless I do research. And I want to read for the House, Mr. Speaker, that the Election Campaign Financing Act number 42 of 2013 in section 12 provides that IBC shall, at least 12 months before the general election, by notice in Gazette notice prescribes the limit: A, total contribution; B, contribution from a single source; C, paid up media coverage; D, loan from forming part of the contribution. In as far as section 12 of the Campaigning Financing Act, the chair of IBC has not committed a crime. Whether this House will agree with him or not, this House can say, you have brought it late. This House can even say, they can even reduce the figure. You know, Chair, if you allow me, let me finish. I mean, Honorable Junet, in fact, what he did was information. Chair, secondly, it is notable that 12 months timeline is on IBC to gazette. That's what the Act is saying. Mr. Speaker, let us not talk out of it, out of ignorance. If you want to challenge me, you challenge me on a section. So, Mr. Speaker, then if IBC was wrong, why did the leader of majority table the regulations? You should not have agreed to table the regulations. You table it on Thursday. The moment the regulations, you have tabled it, and the Speaker submitted it to the delegated legislation, the train has left the station, Mr. Leader of Majority. The next course we are waiting for is for the delegated legislation led by Chair Kamket to come and tell the House whether there was an illegality, whether there was a procedure thing. But I agree with Honorable Junet and the rest that you are given 1 year, and then you bring midnight of the last day of the year. That is mischievous. In fact, it was, let's say, even 1 year. Let's say you could have even brought it last year, August. Last year, August was the time given to him. Mr. Speaker, on the matter of the 40 billion, on the matter of 40 billion, Mr. Speaker, democracy is expensive. If this country can get a credible, free, fair, and peaceful election, we are talking of a budget of 3.3 trillion. What is 40 billion? If that can give us a credible, free, fair, and peaceful election. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, this money is not thrown away. this money is audited by an independent office of the Auditor General in accordance with the Constitution and the Public Audit Act. So, Mr. Speaker, I think, again, the committee that oversights IBC, they just...
Yeah, 1 minute.
Just to finish, can call IBC and say, can you tell us, give us itemized budget? And from there, the committee can send a report to the budget committee. But Mr. Speaker, I really want to ask, not only us, all the stakeholders, as we go to the countdown to the general election, the players, the financiers, the citizens, let us not cast aspersion on the credibility of a person who we want to be the referee. Now they have refused. This house is seized of 4 names. Let us deal with that matter. Let us see whether they are men and women, so that there are 3 led by the chair. We give them the other 4 so that even they get a quorum, Mr. Speaker. I really urge you that with the Committee on Delegated Legislation, we will. But this house must be ready to receive more regulations from IBC and other sectors in government as we go to the countdown of the general election. I rest my case.
Now, honourable members, I think let us now try to put this matter to rest. One, as rightly pointed out by the member for Madare, it is the power, it's the prerogative, constitutional mandate of the IEBC under Article 88, Clause 4, Roman 1, to set the spending limits for political parties and candidates. That is a constitutional mandate given to the IEBC, among other mandates, including, but not limited to what the Honorable Oluoch spoke about, continuous voter registration and education and revision of the voters register. Now, on the other hand, also of importance is the fact that they brought to us some documents. And I'll give you some chronology of what has happened before I make my final pronouncement on what is going to happen. But I think just to be fair to all of us, this is what Section 5 of the Election Campaign Financing Act, number 42 of 2013, provides. Election campaign financing rules, the Commission shall make rules to regulate election campaign financing, A, in the case of a general election, at least 12 months before the election. In the case of a general election. 12 provides that the Commission shall at least 12 months before a general election, by notice in the Gazette, prescribe limits on total contributions, contributions from a single source, paid-up media coverage, loan forming part of a contribution, which a candidate, political party, or referendum committee may receive during the expenditure period. I don't need to go to the other details. I am quite familiar with this law. I have actually had occasion to benchmark before the bill was even drafted to be debated in the House, to benchmark with some other jurisdictions. But more importantly, yes, the IBC is required to gazette even these spending limits. But Section 29 is a clincher, because it provides the Commission may make regulations for the better performance of its functions under this Act. And such regulations shall be laid before the National Assembly, emphasis, National Assembly, for approval before they are published in the Gazette. Before they are published in the Gazette. So you, honourable members, I'm reading this because, as you know, when you're making law, sometimes you provide that certain regulation-making bodies and/or authorities may come up with regulations, may come up with proposed regulations and gazette them. But there is a requirement under the Statutory Instruments Act that if you gazette, then you must table before the National Assembly within 7 days. Once gazetted, such in other laws, once gazetted, they have the force of law until they are annulled through our own processes on our members. That I think, that's the general application of that process as provided for in the Statutory Instruments Act. But for avoidance of doubt, we took a different path when enacting the Campaign Financing Act. Yes, and the finance bills. They don't take effect until approved. So this is specific. And I think I believe in the IEBC, there are quite a number of lawyers and other legal experts. I think they should know that. But again, honourable members, I go by what the Honourable Timonyonyi said, that his committee, and I can see another very active member of that committee, the Honourable Murugara is here, will be looking at these instruments, notwithstanding what we are saying here. Because, again, honourable members, in keeping with good practice, it is not generally a good practice for the Speaker to withdraw business that has been referred to a committee of the House. It is good that the committee looks at whatever business that has been referred to it, makes its report before the House, so that the House makes a determination one way or other, either agreeing with the committee or disagreeing with the committee or proposing amendments to what the committee has come up with, because the committee is a creature of the House. And therefore, honourable members, it is not my intention to remove from the Committee on Delegated Legislation the papers, the instruments which came from the IEBC on Thursday last week. Now, honourable members, having said that, let me also revisit this history. There's something that they brought here, which was referred as the Election Campaign Financing Regulations 2016. And the report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Election Campaign Financing Regulations of 2016 was laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, December 20th, 2016, morning sitting, and notice given that pursuant to the provisions of Sections 18 and 19 of the Statutory Instruments Act 2013 and standing under 210 subsections 4, paragraph B of the House, recommendation 1, the House was requested to reject the draft Election Campaign Financing Regulations 2016 as they contravened Section 5 of the Election Campaign Financing Act 2013 and Section 13A of the Statutory Instruments Act of 2013. Remember, I've just read out to you Section 5. It's on the 12 months. 2, resolves that the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee introduces relevant legislation to amend appropriate sections of the Election Campaign Financing Act 2013, particularly Sections 5 and 18, to give suitable timelines for compliance to enable the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission submit fresh regulations for approval. Honourable members, the Committee on Delegated Legislation of the last Parliament, in making this recommendation, and in mind that if the timelines in Section 5 could be reduced, then the IEBC could be given a chance to resuscitate, it's like bring back to life what came to Parliament as a corpse. Now, the record shows that on Tuesday, December 20th, 2016, in the afternoon sitting, the chairperson of the Committee on Delegated Legislation withdrew the motion pursuant to Standing Order number 51. So the motion was never debated. The House resumed. Now, with regard to election campaign financing regulations, which were titled 2020, this is what has happened, and this is the chronology of events. Number one, this House resumed its sittings on Tuesday, 3rd of August, 2021, having been on a short recess from Thursday, 8th of July, 2021, as per the calendar of the House. Number two, a letter from the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, dated Wednesday, 27th of July, 2021, on the subject of the submission of election campaign financing regulations, was received in the office of the clerk on Wednesday, 28th July, 2021. However, the regulations were not attached as indicated in the letter, and instead what was attached was the Election Campaign Financing, in brackets, Amendment Bill 2020. Number four, on Wednesday, 4th of August, a day after we resumed, last week, the Director, Legal Affairs, wrote an email to the IEBC communicating the error and asking that they send the regulations to enable the National Assembly process the same as required by law. Number five, on Wednesday, the same Wednesday, 4th of August, through an email, IEBC sent the regulations reading 2016 instead of 2020. This error was brought to the attention of the IEBC, and they were requested again to send the correct copy. Number six, on Thursday, 5th of August, 2021, through an email, IEBC sent the correct copy of the regulations. And on the same day, which was Thursday last week, the draft election campaign financing regulations 2020 and accompanying explanatory memorandum were laid before the House by the majority party whip on behalf of the leader of the majority party and referred to the Committee on Delegated Legislation. Immediately after the regulations were tabled, the Speaker issued a communication on the same and urged the committee to expedite the process of consideration of the draft regulations and table their report. Of course, taking into account that it is fair that the committee also, in keeping with what the Honorable Chris Wamalwa said, engages with the public participation. So the committee, the same draft regulations were referred to the committee on the same date. And as we've heard from the Honorable Tim Wanyonyi, the committee is due to have its sitting tomorrow and consider. Therefore, honourable members, the point is, remember in our standing order 210, I think one of you made a reference to it. Yes, standing order number 210, subsection 3, Roman J, is a requirement that a committee must consider whether there has been unreasonable delay in tabling of any instruments before the committee and make an appropriate recommendation to the House. But it is not fair for anybody out there to suggest that the House, this House, has sat on any regulations meant to provide for expenditure, campaign financing for the next general elections. should they feel that again, that there is need to shorten the period, they are at liberty to approach the committee where the Honorable Oluoch sits and Honorable Murugara to propose an amendment to the Campaign Financing Act itself, Section 5 and Section 12, to reduce the period within by which they are required. But remember, this requirement for 12 months is with regard to a general election. And therefore, this is a matter that has been with the IEBC for the longest time anybody can imagine. I don't think whether, unless they have been holding night sessions to do other things, they should have, coming up with the regulation should have been easy. But remember, again, there's a requirement. We did this act, Campaign Financing Act, that even in coming up with the regulations, they must show our Committee on Delegated Legislation that they have actually engaged the public. Even they themselves are required to engage the public. And therefore, it is not right for any of them or even any other person to try to hold the House as the one delaying the formulation and approval of the regulations. So, in keeping with good practice, as I said earlier, let our Committee on Delegated Legislation consider those instruments and make whatever recommendations they find appropriate in the circumstances, and the House will be also at liberty to debate the recommendations of the committee and resolve as necessary. I thank you, honourable members. Next.
Order number 8, the Public Service Internship Bill, National Assembly Bill number 25 of 2021, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to make provision for internship of college and university graduates in the public sector, to provide for hands-on training and acquisition of skills by graduates and for connected purposes. Order number 9, the Asian Widows and Orphans Pensions Repeal Bill, National Assembly Bill number 29 of 2021, first reading.
Next.
A bill for an act of parliament to repeal the Asian Widows and Orphans Pensions Act and for connected purposes.
Next.
Order number 10, the Provident Fund Repeal Bill, National Assembly Bill number 30 of 2021, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to repeal the Provident Fund Act and for connected purposes. Order number 11, the National Hospital Insurance Fund Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 21 of 2021, second reading, resumption of debate.
Now, honourable members, by the time the House adjourned, the Honourable Janet Nangabo was the 24th member who was on the floor, and the Honourable Nangabo has a balance of 5 minutes. The Honourable Janet Nangabo. And I heard the person who was on the chair explain to you that indeed you have that 5 minutes as balance. The Honourable Janet Nangabo, if she is in the House. Absent. It can't be. Yes, the NHIF, the debate on the National Hospital Insurance Fund Act, Amendment Act. But, honourable members, it's also fair that perhaps we note the members who have spoken so that yes, because some of those who have spoken, I can see they are number one on the request list, like 001. Those who have spoken, the Majority Whip, the Honourable Wangwe, seconded by the Honourable Martin Owino, the Honourable Sankok, the Honourable Oundo, the Honourable Koske Kimtai, the Honourable Sabina Chege, the Honourable Mohammed Sheikh, the Honorable Wilson Sosion, the Honorable Omboko Milemba, the Honorable Gladys Wanga, the Honorable Ali Raso, the Honorable Kahai Andagala, the Honorable Robert Pukose, the Honorable James Nyikal, the Honorable Wadhigo Manje, the Honorable Emilio Diambo, the Honorable Vorane Hire, the Honorable Dur Ombaka, the Honorable Mutunga Kanyidia, the Honorable Robert Mbui, the Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi, the Honorable Jaren Okelo, the Honorable Kimani Kihara Kimari, and the Honorable Jaren Nangabo was on the floor. So I will now look for those that have not, those names don't appear there. And the member for Garissa Township appears high on the list.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to contribute to the second reading of the National Hospital Insurance Fund Amendment Bill 2020. Mr. Speaker, I had the chance to go through this bill, and from the face of it, this bill narrates and seeks to amend the NHIF Act in order to enhance the mandate and the capacity of the National Insurance Fund, and specifically to facilitate and deliver one of the legacy of President Uhuru Kenyatta, which is the universal health coverage. However, Mr. Speaker, and let me be very honest, I really don't like critiquing government bills, because I have been moving government bills for a long time. But Mr. Speaker, a critical reading of the bill reveals otherwise contrary to promoting universal health care. And why do I say so? In fact, in my opinion, it inhibits the thing it's trying to achieve, which is universal health care coverage for every citizen of our country. Speaker, why do I say so? Article 43 of the Constitution, the Speaker, provides that every person has the right to the highest attainable standard of health care. However, despite this constitutional provision, this bill, in my view, Mr. Speaker, is either not cognizant of that provision of the Constitution, or the people who drafted it and are not aware of the socio-economic terrain of our country. So, Mr. Speaker, I'll just speak on 3 clauses. A case in point, Mr. Speaker, is clause 17, subclause E of this bill, which provides that a beneficiary who has a private health insurance cover shall first exhaust the private cover before accessing NHIF. The question that I need to ask is how many of our people have private insurance cover? Very few, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is a fact, and every member in this House knows, that many of our people rely on public health facilities to access medical treatment. Mr. Speaker, how will universal health care or universal health coverage be achieved when this same bill makes it a priority for persons with private insurance to use their cover first before accessing NHIF? Should NHIF not be the first cover you apply to cover basic, essential health package at public health facilities? The Wanjiko of this country go to public health facility to seek medical cover, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, is this bill not telling Wanjiko, sorry, go get a private insurance cover first and use it before you exhaust your NHIF cover? This is what we need to deal with when we come to the Committee of the Whole House. And Mr. Speaker, how many Kenyans can afford to get private insurance covers? And I think, Mr. Speaker, we need to tell Kenyans the truth, that this bill clearly negates the right of every Kenyan to access universal health care. Honorable Speaker, the second point is, which is worse still, that this bill has given unfettered power and discretion to the NHIF board in prescribing the number of beneficiaries that may access NHIF cover. So the question that I asked, Mr. Speaker, is what parameters exist that the board is using to guide in making a determination on the number of beneficiaries? Should the bill not have prescribed factors to be considered by the board in prescribing such limits of the people in a family who will access this cover, Mr. Speaker? This, in my view, Mr. Speaker, gives rooms for discretion and may leave many innocent beneficiaries out of the NHIF and out of the proposed universal health coverage, which is a good thing and a legacy of our president. Honorable Speaker, lastly, the drafters of this bill may also possibly not have appreciated the economic effects of the bill if it is enacted. And why do I say so? Looking at clause 10 of the bill, Mr. Speaker, it provides both the employers and employees to share and contribute what we call the matching contribution of their employees too. So everybody will contribute. Noting that, Mr. Speaker, there's no exception. In my opinion, there should have been an exception to the small, medium enterprises. The people who are running cottage industries. The moment you tell them, pay, you have to do a matching, pay for the people you employ, because they work on small profit margin, what they will do is they will lay them off. They will reduce the numbers. And Mr. Speaker, for a person who speaks and who believes in the hustler nation, this bill is not in tandem with the philosophy of the hustler nation that I believe in of late. Speaker, this bill ought to have provided incentives for employers to contribute, including reasonable contribution to the fund, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, worse is that if you look at the bill at clause 13, this is the worst. And that's why I had to read this bill and discuss. And I'm sure in consultation with the leader of majority, we will look at these clauses. Finally, look at clause 13. Clause 13 is creating a punitive penalty both for Wanjiku and the employer who fails to contribute to the fund. Speaker, that is very, very unfair to Wanjiku, who is basically on a survival mode faced by this COVID. Mr. Speaker, Wanjiku shall now be required to pay. And when I use Wanjiku, Mr. Speaker, I'm talking for the ordinary person in this country. Wanjiku in clause 13, Wanjiku is required to pay 25% of her contribution, and if she delays, I want members to listen to me. If Wanjiku delays...
The Honorable Dwale, just hold on. The Honorable Onyango for Muhoroni, what is out of order?
With my good friend, I would want to remind him that Wanjiku is no longer named for an ordinary person. Wanjiku is a member of parliament. So he must remodel his assertion.
Mr. Speaker, Honorable member is a good friend of mine. And you know, I always don't pick a war with him because he has a history. He was a politician during Moi's time. So he is my resource person. But Mr. Speaker, Wanjiku now is being required to pay 25% of her contribution. And if she delays in paying the required penalty, Mr. Speaker, it is very important for members to listen to me. For instance, if her contribution is 500 and she delays in paying, she will be required to pay 125 shilling for every delay in remittance. Surely, Mr. Speaker, these hard economic times of COVID, why should Wanjiku be told to pay penalty? Mr. Speaker, let me go on record that these bills fails far below the facilitating the attainment of the universal health care, and in consultation with the leader of majority, we will bring amendments to make sure that we achieve one of the key legacies of President Uhuru Kenyatta, which is universal health coverage.
The Honorable Koyo, now is your opportunity to contribute.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, on the one the intention of this bill is very good. It's aimed at enabling the common person, the real Wanjiku before, to be able to access medical facilities everywhere in this country. And that was the intention, noble intention of the crafters of this particular concept of National Hospital Insurance Fund. And these are accolades we give to our fallen doyen, Thomas Joseph Mboya. But the real intention, I for sure, after the handshake, His Excellency the President came to inaugurate what was called at universal health care, which we received him very well, and we thought that after that we were going to get a lot of relief in the medical facilities. But soon thereafter, there came the COVID pandemic, and we are yet to see the serious solution that the universal health care could offer. Apart from medical practitioners who are facilities who are benefiting from National Hospital Insurance Fund, the public gets very little benefit. So I think that we should take this bill seriously and make sure that we factor in issues that can really put smile in the face of a common person, and not only the ones that are enabling the owners of medical facilities to benefit all the way. We also need to not to give the board so much teeth, because all the returns that we have seen, or any manner of audit that has been done in National Hospital Fund has left the feelings of Kenyans very bad, because a lot of corruption has been in existence simply because the board has been given a lot of teeth. And I've seen in the bill, we still want to give the board more teeth. We still want even to remove. The ultimate intention is to use the opportunity to even remove people who are standing in for the donors. And I don't know how one can be a donor and then you don't have a position, a representation in an organization where you are the donor. So the ultimate intention is very good, but we need to put in more teeth. And I believe that members need to scrutinize the bill and bring on board issues and concepts that will benefit the ultimate intended person, which is Wanjiku, the real Wanjiku before we became a member of parliament. Otherwise, I support.
The Honorable Iringo Kubai, member for Igembe Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this important bill. Mr. Speaker, on the onset, I support, albeit I will suggest some amendments when it comes to the committee of the whole House. But in essence, Mr. Speaker, this bill is good in that it is trying to encompass or to make at least to have as many people as possible registered, and more so, even having the employers assist in having members to be registered, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the current present situation, Mr. Speaker, we are having a very big problem when it comes to medical issues, because most of our citizens, some of them or most of them are either ignorant or they are not able to pay for the services, and more so, even those ones who are able to pay, they happen not to be where there are registered hospitals which offer the services, Mr. Speaker. And in this bill, Mr. Speaker, it is trying to cure or cover that gap which has already been created, whereby we are going to have as many as possible health providers who are inside the bracket or who are able to, who are captured, and so that you can have most of the citizens who really need the services to get medical services as near to them as possible. Mr. Speaker, currently, if you look across the country, and you know when we are in this dangerous time of COVID-19, Mr. Speaker, even hospitals have started refusing some some insurances and even the NHIF is not assisting people with the required finances to cater for these many diseases, Mr. Speaker. But if this one is cured by this bill, Mr. Speaker, it will be a relief to families who undergo a lot of torture when they have their loved ones who are asked for so many or very big hospital bills, which they are not able to pay. They go to fundraisers and other things. And at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, you find that even as the person is ailing, also the resources or the family's savings are replenished. And unfortunately, when these people pass on, the people die, and on death they go with everything. Mr. Speaker, NHIF is a very important government tool, but more so also it should be safeguarded and guarded religiously, because of late, Mr. Speaker, also you find that now there are gaps in the same NHIF, whereby you find that recently we had even some senior staff being relieved of their duties because of misappropriation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there is a trend in NHIF where there's a skewed way of assisting the needy ones. You find there are those who get assistance for certain ailments, and when you go to the others, you find that it is not happening, and they say it is not in the act. This bill has captured that exactly where and who should benefit from this particular, from each and every particular ailment, Mr. Speaker, so that we don't have people going behind the doors, and one is getting a relief, and the other one is not getting, Mr. Speaker. A case in mind, Mr. Speaker, is I had a patient who was sick and was supposed to go to India for some treatment. And the NHIF, I was informed that they can cover up to 500,000 for that particular ailment. It became very difficult to get a straight answer from that office saying that they don't do it, Mr. Speaker. But when I went and used another person, it became easy, and that person, the patient got money. Mr. Speaker, those double standards are the ones which need to be cured by this bill, whereby each and every citizen, doesn't matter from where you come from what status you are in, you must get the services as per par. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, like one of the speakers has said, if we penalize people when they fail to pay, it will become a dangerous move, Mr. Speaker, because usually one doesn't fail to pay because he or she doesn't want or was forgotten. Sometimes they don't have money. Sometimes they don't have money. They have even approached us as MPs. Personally, I've been approached by many that they say that my cover has elapsed for 3 months. Please assist me so that I can at least go and update my records. These penalties will be, it will be something which will backfire on the government side, and more so it will bring hue and cry, and it should be considered that if one fails to pay, at least there should have been a reason, and the one is asked to update the records as per, but without penalties. Because this is not a profit-making body, Mr. Speaker. This is not a place where we want to make money from our citizens who are suffering in either ways, or who have got strained financially by other factors. It should be a fund. We should caution the citizens so that at least they can feel comfortable when they have those cans, when they fall ill, when they go to the hospital, and once they find that the services are provided as per required and through the correct system, then it will be even an encouragement to have even others to join the fund in big numbers. Mr. Speaker, this fund should be guarded again, as I said, religiously, and when it comes to the committee of the House, and when we bring in amendments, Mr. Speaker, I will also come in with my amendments so that we can police it in as much as possible, so that it can be, once it is enacted, it will be a document which can serve this country for many years to come. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I support.
The Honorable Rosanna Fasaris, member for Nairobi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, when we think of the agenda of the President in terms of universal health care, and we look at NHIF, I think we have to realize that NHIF is meant for the very vulnerable citizens of this country, the ones who really need medical attention and cannot afford high premiums. But we as members of parliament can afford high premiums. Many people in the private sector can afford high premiums. Unfortunately, NHIF has made certain covers available to civil servants, but they have not made covers available to other private entities that want to pay higher premium to get higher cover. I think giving them a bill is not enough. I think there has to be creativity also on their part in terms of how they will recruit more members and how they can get the reach to cushion the very vulnerable citizens. It is unfair for somebody, for instance, of my stature, to be paying the same premium as somebody who is absolutely like my driver for NHIF. Okay, so when it comes to the reach, and when they say that the people who have alternative private sector insurance covers should not be able to utilize NHIF, I think that is trying to tilt and change the system completely. NHIF covers, even when we go into private hospitals, they cover a certain aspect, not the entire bill. It's mostly picked up by the private entity. I think we have to recognize that NHIF is for the most vulnerable and make sure that NHIF, in this bill, we have huge, huge penalties for the various corruption that we see in NHIF, because you cannot attain universal health care without, first of all, an affordable premium. Second, ensuring that every citizen in this country feels the need and the desire to have that cover, and even the ones who cannot access it. For instance, we came up with NHIF for secondary school kids. I've seen that that has helped quite a number of school students. But what happens when they come out of school? There is no follow-up to ensure that there's transition after the school cover. What happens, for instance, to the old people? There is an old woman who recently got hospitalized. She was detained by the hospital because of a big bill. NHIF is supposed to actually cover for this old woman over 70. It was a government program to ensure that everybody over 70 that is vulnerable actually gets the cover. But they are not aware about it. The chiefs are not aware about it, especially in the remote places. So we can have the bill, but at the end of the day, it is how we're going to implement this bill. What exactly do we want to achieve? When we come up with laws, we're coming up with laws so that we can actually help our citizens. So NHIF also, when it comes to licensing or facilities, there are many facilities that today are paralyzed. Why? Because NHIF does not pay them the money that is due. And there's a lot of corruption. I was actually talking to a previous member of parliament, John Mututu, regarding a facility that he has in Naivasha. And he tells me that he's had to actually go to court to ensure and compel that NHIF pays him. Because for you to be paid your money, you have to part with money. So that corruption in itself deters medical covers, because now anybody who has got drug and rehabilitation and requires assistance will not be able to get it. So I think there's one thing, when we're looking at the law, we have to also look at the regulations and ensure that we make sure that the entity that we're making laws for actually is in tune with the requirements on the ground. I've seen NHIF give covers, for instance, for people who go to India. But to get that cover, I don't know what has to happen for somebody to say, I'm going to India, NHIF has approved for me to actually have the treatment in India. What about the other Kenyans who need that treatment but don't know how to access that service? So I believe that there's a lot more that needs to be done than just having a law. I think we need to ensure that we actually are in tune with what is happening in our country in terms of deterring universal health care. For universal health care to happen, the rich have got to pay higher premiums. The majority of Kenyans have to be convinced and have to have a premium that is affordable so that they can actually pay the premium. Because if we have a premium that is not affordable, then it will not happen. And during this COVID period, a lot of people were not able to pay their premiums. Us as NGAF, we actually took a number of cancer survivors who could not pay their premiums, and we ended up paying for them the premiums so that they could remain in the cover. Because can you imagine, you're a cancer survivor, you do not have a cover, and you cannot afford to pay the premium. You have a cover, you have a card, but you cannot afford. So when it comes to penalties, I think trying to penalize people, you cannot get water from a rock. At the end of the day, you have to be in tune. The law has to be in tune with the needs of the people. We have to understand where the people are at and what are their challenges. And if you're a pregnant woman and you are going into, there's a pregnant woman who recently came and said she wants to go to give birth at Pumwani, but she's told she cannot be registered at, at Pumwani for Linda Mama because she's lost her ID. Surely the woman is there. She's pregnant. She knows her details. How can you say because you don't have the ID, you cannot be registered, you have to pay for the delivery? So I think somewhere along the line, we have to have the human touch to services that we provide through legislation. Because legislation without the human touch is not going to help the citizens of this country. So as I support the bill, I feel that the drafters of the bill should actually look at making sure that every aspect that concerns the citizens of this country, from the old, from the PWDs to the young, has to be catered for. And when it comes to the premium, I think we have to also understand that certain families cannot probably afford the 500 shillings. So if they've lapsed and they get sick, how can we ensure that they get help? Because what is the use of putting all these facilities that we're putting when people cannot access them? But the corruption, if we do not deal with the corruption that comes under such public entities, then we will actually be making laws and not being able to serve our people. So the big elephant in the room that needs to be catered when we want to deliver universal health care and any other programs of government has to be corruption. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, allow me to welcome the youngest member of this House, the Honorable John Juguna Wanjiku, the member for Kiambaa, to make his maiden address to the House. You are most welcome to the House.
Thank you.
The Honorable John.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me start by saying I rise to support the second viewing.
Yes, the Honorable John, just keep your mask on, please. Yes, and you will not be interrupted during your speech. So take your time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I start by saying I rise to support the second reading of this bill, and I would like to make some contributions towards it. Mr. Speaker, the majority of low-income Kenyans lack medical insurance, forcing to pay hospital bills out of pockets, leaving families vulnerable in the face of high treatment costs. It is from this background that I stand here to support this bill. This because informal workers who are currently paying 500 shillings in the NHIF monthly contribution will be cut to 300 shillings, making the scheme affordable to the low-income card who constitute a majority of the hustlers in this country. This move should help set as many people in the category as possible so as to afford them the opportunity to enjoy in the aspiration of UHC. I reckon that informal workers paid 350 in a monthly contribution. Before the rates, I increased to 500 6 years ago, a move meant to boost NHIF corrections from the informal sector. However, this has been counterproductive due to affordability, thus lacking out access by the same group. These are groups whose daily troubles include access to food, thus they cannot be trapped into a high monthly subscription. Thus I round the intention of this bill, which is to ensure that many Kenyans, particularly persons who are in the informal sectors and those who are not working, cannot afford to pay NHIF contribution by reducing the rates from the current 500 per month to 300 shillings. Lowering of the monthly contribution will also help address the pain induced by coronavirus, induced by layoffs and salary cuts, which have forced more than half of NHIF active members to stop paying premiums. Mr. Speaker, today being I therefore support being my first day, I would like to digress a little bit and also take this opportunity to thank the great people of Kiambaa, for believing in me and for supporting me and trusting me with their votes. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that there are quite a number of challenges that we face during the by-election. But apart from that, I also want to take this opportunity to thank so many people, especially members from Kiambaa constituency, starting with all the way from Shianda, Karuri, to Mushada Ward, to Kihara Ward, and Dendelo. And I really want to thank them for believing in me and for entrusting me with their votes. And I want to state categorically, and I also want to tell them that I'll be here to support and also to work so that I can ensure that I honor the promises that I made to the people of Kiambaa. Mr. Speaker, I would also want to thank special people who came in to support us. I want to take this opportunity to support the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, being the chief crack hustler, for believing in a hustler like me, a chicken intestine vendor who did not have a father or who did not have a name, who did not have a big name, but he believed in me and he gave me an opportunity and also to mentor in a cause and also several calls that he made to ensure that we are praying and also to support me morally for ensuring that at the end of the day, we are doing our campaign and we ensured that we deliver, the Kiambaa seat, the Hustler Nation. I seriously appreciate and thank the Deputy President. Secondly, there are other hustlers generally from the Republic of Kenya who are supporting the Hustler Nation and Hustler narrative. Generals from this house, starting from Mheshimiwa Honorable Dede Nyoro, Mheshimiwa Kimani Ichung'wah, Mheshimiwa Rigathi Gachagua, Mheshimiwa George Kariuki, Mheshimiwa Jane Kihara, and also for supporting me and believing also in me. They gave me an opportunity to market myself to the Kiambaa people, to sell my ideas, some of them being ensuring that we will ensure that we give bursary to the people of Kiambaa in a transparency manner that has never happened before, ensuring that we're gonna increase and ensure that we model and we build schools that will help the Kiambaa people so that at the end of the day, we can be able to take our kids to a good environment where our students and how our children will be going to school too. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the UDA party. They gave me an opportunity without asking me 1,001 questions. I would want to thank the Madam SG, Veronica Maina, because the first day that there was a by-election, I went to her office and she believed in me and gave me an opportunity, to be heard. And from that, today is a story. Today, I'm a member of parliament for Kiambaa, a constituency that we have never had an opportunity, to erect a young member of parliament, being the first young member of parliament from Kiambaa constituency. I take that opportunity to thank them. I also want to thank the women of Kenya, and especially for Kiambaa. It is the first time the single mothers from Kiambaa constituencies, I want to tell them that it doesn't matter the challenges that you are facing today. It doesn't matter as you bring up those young kids. It doesn't matter who is their father. It doesn't matter where the families that they come from. But I want to encourage them that wherever they are, and this one I also want to sincerely thank even if she's not around, my late mother, Philomena Wanjiko Karanja, for believing in me also and also giving me an opportunity and also bringing me up in a manner that, other kids, are being brought up in. So I want to take that opportunity to thank the women of this great republic and tell them that they can still, their children, they can still make it. If I made it to be a member of parliament for Kiambaa, it doesn't matter where you are coming from. One day, as long as you have a dream, as long as you have a vision, as long as you have something, you have your faith in God, one day you become what you believe in. I will also thank the Almighty God, for keeping me alive and also for ensuring that the kind of a direction that we witnessed in Kiambaa constituency, Mr. Speaker, I take this opportunity to seriously and condemn, that the government for bringing up machineries that we have never witnessed before in Kiambaa. Kiambaa election is a very peaceful area. We have never had, violence before, but some of the cars, the chiefs being in uniforms, coming to bribe people. And I would like to ask the government of the Republic of Kenya, allow Kenyans to make their own decision when it comes their democratic right to elect the leaders that they want them to represent them, whether in parliament, whether in the National Assembly, whether in the Senate, or whether it is the president. Let us give the Kenyans an opportunity to democratically exercise their democratic right without influencing. And I sincerely thank the Kiambaa people, because even after all those intimidations that happened during the election day, they did not bow down to pressure. They did not bow down, to victimization. They decided and they elected me as their member of parliament with UDA ticket. I thank all the people of Kiambaa. I take this opportunity to also thank, this hustler nation in the whole Republic of Kenya. And I want to tell them, if they had any doubt that the hustler nation is Lil, I'm a good example, Mr. Speaker, that the hustler nation is Lil. I was a chicken intestine vendor. I got an opportunity. I had a dream that I never thought that maybe one day I'll be a member of parliament. And today, God has made it possible. So the hustler nation, and when it all start talking about bottom-up thing or economic, it is true that you can start from somewhere and you become something in this Republic of Kenya. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to support.
You are most welcome to the House, the Honorable Wanjiku, and thank you for believing in the beauty of your dreams, and I wish you well. I also wish the people of Kiambaa well as you lead them. May God bless you. We shall have now contribution from the Honorable Obo Mohammed, member for Lamu. She's not in the House. The Honorable Mizigi Mneni, member for Taita.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And from the onset, I wish to take this opportunity to congratulate the newest kid on the block in Parliament, and for that very awesome support there. Mr. Speaker, I also want from the onset to support the amendments on the NHIF bill. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, is that we have lost life. The way and the number of people who are dying, this situation is really worrying, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, burials have become the order of the day. Nowadays, when you travel back to the counties, every day, every single day, people are burying from Monday to Saturday, even up to Sunday. People are burying. And Mr. Speaker, if there's a time NHIF needed to come through for Kenyans, it is now. Because most of these deaths are caused by a lack of good treatment or a lack of getting the right medications. We have seen ourselves, Mr. Speaker, being added to several WhatsApp groups, many of them, each and every day. And most of them, majority of them, are because of medical bills. At times, Mr. Speaker, you are added to a WhatsApp group, you start recollecting yourself and making contribution. Before even you are done, the group turns to a farewell group, meaning that we have lost the person that we were contributing money to. And that person has gone because he could not access the treatment. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, as I stand today to support this bill, I want to say that this cover is very important. And NHIF should also do a lot of civic education and awareness, telling people how important this cover is, so that everybody can be well aware of this cover, because we have realized, as much as we are doing it, but majority of the people are not aware of how important this cover can be, or how important it can come through. So therefore, I support, Mr. Speaker, because I have gone through the bill, I've read it, and it's going to be better than the way it was before. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving this opportunity, and I support.
The Honorable Koi Waluke,
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me a chance. Mr. Speaker, our parents, brothers and sisters, many of them are poor. They cannot afford to pay for this NHIF card. Mr. Speaker, as a House, I request, Mr. Speaker, that members of Parliament should come in every constituency, Mr. Speaker, and even counties, to make sure that they pay for our people to get this NHIF card, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, people are dying. Very many people are dying. In one weekend, in our constituency, you can bury even 15 people. And because of lack of money, because of poor life, our people are going through a very difficult time, especially this time of COVID. Mr. Speaker, Kenyan people operate below $1. And time and time, Mr. Speaker, the government have talked of improving the lives of our people, and they should start with paying the NHIF card if they want to save life of our people, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is difficult if you are sick and you cannot afford even food or medicine. One should be medicine and then food to make you feel like you are a Kenyan, and our people live like refugees in their own country. There are only few people, Mr. Speaker, because 50% of our people, Mr. Speaker, of the population of this country are poor. So therefore, as leaders, we should come in. And NHIF staff, Mr. Speaker, they should also come out clearly. Because these days we see even banks go out to do marketing. But they are just there sitting. They don't even educate the community to know what is NHIF. So the MD for NHIF should come out with these people. I saw the other day CS Matiang'i, who is a minister in Interior, doing marketing for NHIF. But I've never seen the NHIF themselves coming out to do marketing to the people of Kenya, to tell them the importance of NHIF card, Mr. Speaker. But all the same, Mr. Speaker, I support the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, I support.
The Honorable Ombaki Machogu, member for Nyaribari Masaba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute this very important bill, 2021. Mr. Speaker, when we look at the contents of the bill, because I've gone through the entire bill, indeed, it is going to provide a milestone in the health sector in this country. Mr. Speaker, when you look at the NHIF Act, which was enacted in 1998, that is 22 years up to now, what it has done, and the people who have been enlisted in this, indeed, compared to the entire population in the country, is a very, very small number, because the total number that we have registered in NHIF does not even constitute 20% Indeed, when you look at the total workforce, particularly in the informal sector, which contributes over 83% of the workforce, only 15% of those in the informal sector are registered as members of NHIF. Now, this particular amendment makes it compulsory and mandatory for each and every individual in Kenya, once that particular individual attains the age of 18, to register as a member of the fund. And by so doing, we are actually looking at universal health coverage, because you cannot be able to attain universal health coverage unless and until you are able to have almost each and every person on board. Mr. Speaker, the other thing, because in totality, it looks at how revenues can be increased, because the major handicap that NHIF has also had is finances, such that it does not generate enough revenue from the sources that it has been generating. But when you see now the areas that it will be able to generate revenue, it will enable them to really cater for the mandate, the wider mandate that has been given, because indeed the Act also expands the mandate of NHIF. The other very important area that the Act looks at, Mr. Speaker, is matching the contributions of the employer with that of the employee, and by so doing, it will also increase the premium, and additional also, those co-insured, because when you look at the percentage, Mr. Speaker, of the people insured with the private insurance companies are actually those on the top notch of this country, and the number and the greater percentage don't fall in this category. And that's why I support, because the Act does state that, yes, the daily rebate inpatient, which one is supposed to pay, that can be done by NHIF, but when it comes to other payments, the private insurance company has to pay before NHIF comes in. So in that particular area, Mr. Speaker, the revenue by NHIF will not only triple, but tremendously increase to cater for this particular need, because the Act also looks at, indeed, health is not an issue that we are supposed to look at the ability, the financial ability of the individual, but the health care, the care that is, it is supposed to be provided to each and every individual, because indeed, health as it were, is a basic need. Mr. Speaker, the other clause that the Act looks at, which to me is very crucial, is clause number 24, which indeed proposes to repeal Section 34, which will now empower the board to acquire and procure equipment and even hospital infrastructure. And in this particular one, when we come to the committee of the whole House, Mr. Speaker, we will propose that that particular area goes particular to private public hospitals, because public hospitals lack essential equipment and infrastructure, and by empowering the board to do this, it will make sure that some of the lacking facilities in the public hospitals will be available, because public hospitals are motivated by service delivery as opposed to private hospitals, which are motivated by profit making. Finally, Mr. Speaker, we should not be able to make payment punitive, and this is one area that we will be able to propose some adjustments in the Committee of the Whole House, because by rate payments, if we so do, the first culprit is going to be none other than Parliament, because the committee that I chair, that is Member Services and Facilities, Mr. Speaker, we are always right in paying NHIF contributions because of the rate payment that comes from Treasury, and we are therefore not able to pay our workers in time, so these particular contributions always come late, not a fault of our own making, but Treasury which remits this money rate. Mr. Speaker, I support this 100% with a few adjustments and amendments, because it is indeed good for this country, because we cannot be able to say, a sick nation, that people are sick. Members here are raising funds, fundraisings each and every time, because our people cannot be able to afford medical care, and we can only be able to amend and ameliorate, mitigate this particular area where we are forced to give our own contributions to our people who are not able to afford, because the poverty level in this country is very high, 80%, over 50% below the poverty line, so we should be able to support this particular bill. And Mr. Speaker, I support this particular bill. Thank you.
The Honorable Abdi Yusuf, member for Kamukunji.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this important bill, the National Hospital Insurance Fund Amendment Bill 2021. And I stand here to reinforce the concept that health is a human right, and health for all is the aspiration of any decent government and any people or community. And this bill also comes at an important, or rather a critical time, when we're struggling with the multiple effects of the corona pandemic, the economic problems as a result of that, and the growing need to protect our community and our people, as well as to provide health care support to those unfortunate victims of the pandemic. I would like to sort of say two things stand out in this particular bill. One is the fact that now it becomes compulsory for every adult Kenyan to be a member, so that this particular fund can get the necessary contributions to be able to provide the kind of health care that is the aspiration of this particular country and organization, the fund. The fund's mission, for example, says its mission is to contribute towards universal health care coverage by providing affordable, accessible, sustainable, and quality health insurance. And I think this is the challenge that with this bill, we will be passing over to the fund to ensure that our people, the people of Kenya, get the best support they can in terms of being able to meet the health needs of our country. And you know that we will not be able to reach a level of development and get rid of poverty, diseases, and illiteracy unless we are able to put into place the healthcare system that we need to meet those challenges. And I think the fund here is a major instrument for the Kenyan government and the Kenyan people to be able to achieve universal health coverage. Another thing that I like about this particular bill is that it will be able to contribute towards lowering the monthly contributions that members make to it. And this is particularly so for people with low incomes or people from the informal sector. I note that this particular fund has now about 8 million members, which is considerably small if you look at the general adult population of this country that needs to get support in terms of healthcare. And out of that, about 5.7 million are from the informal sector. And those members of the informal sector have been hard hit by the economy and the pandemic, that many of them have stopped making contributions. So one of the challenges, and I think hopefully what this bill is going to contribute to, is to ensure that we increase the membership to cover almost all the adult population of our country, and in that sense to be able to get the economy of scales that would allow the fund to be able to provide what it caters for, or what it says it intends to do for its, in its mission, which is to provide sustainable, quality health insurance. And therefore, I support this bill, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, sir.
Let's have the member for Makueni, Honorable Manzo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me an opportunity.
Honorable Leader of Majority, are you up to contribute, or you are okay? You're having another audience, I can see. Honorable Manzo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me thank you for giving me this opportunity to contribute on this very, very important bill. And Madam Speaker stated that health, is everything. If there is no good health, then the nation really suffers. So, and a healthy individual and a healthy people is a healthy nation, is a working nation. And one of the biggest challenges when people become sick is the hospital bills. And in fact, members of parliament have become the insurance for many Kenyans. A lot of time you love to fundraise to pay for bills in hospitals. Kenyatta hospitals, sometimes they are kind to waive. When they are satisfied the person is really stuck. A lot of times, Madam Speaker, bodies are stuck in the morgue or because bills have not been paid. And it is very frustrating, Madam Speaker. A lot of times, using the old act and the administration, somebody will pass away, the bills are huge. You cannot even get the paperwork done with NHIF. And finally, if they do, it's a very small amount of money, which does not help the family. And it's necessary to amend this law. And I think as a House, and I really want to challenge, and I'm planning to do a lot of amendments in the third reading to make sure this bill fits what it was supposed to be from its public participation. Ordinarily, people are not looking for a fund as it is today. They are looking for a social welfare situation whereby it takes care of everyone despite their level of living, their class. And the best example of this sort of fund is in Thailand. And I thought the ministry had benchmarked with Thailand and it would give us something really palatable for Kenyans. But unfortunately, as it is now, it is still unclear. It is still being called, health insurance fund. We are still using the word fund. Yet, if you go to the inscription, the definition, while you are trying to introduce this act, when you go to it, you find a different story other than the fund. Other than the fund, you find it captures the aspiration of Kenyans in their memorandum of understanding, and you can see it is described as in the memorandum of objects. It is this is a bill to amend the National Hospital Insurance Fund Act of 1998 to establish the National Health Scheme. So we should now be talking of a scheme and not a fund, and to enhance the mandate and the capacity of the National Hospital Insurance Fund to facilitate and deliver the universal health coverage. So really, the concept of a fund, and I'm sure the leader of majority who is an expert in this will expound while I reply or when we are making amendments. The fund has really given us troubles, and we need to improve it to have a social side of it so that communities can ensure, even as a group, you can have group insurance, for people, cooperatives, chamas, those, so that people begin this concept and can be able to donate. And when somebody is, unfortunately goes to hospital or becomes sick, is able to be taken care of. You can see what has happened with the COVID situation. Today I've been fundraising for 1 or 2 people from Makueni who recovered from COVID but are stuck in private hospitals. Because that's where they could find a bed or could find oxygen when things were so bad, and you could not find this in a normal hospital. That really gives a challenge. What happens in a situation of emergency? What happens, when somebody finds themselves in that situation? And you see in the COVID situation, they're not covered in whatever sense. Insurance, unless somebody has taken a special insurance. And I can assure you, Madam Speaker, the Kenyans who are able to take their own personal or private insurance are really few, and even those who understand the concept. Because Kenyans have to learn this concept of NHIF and that kind of insurance, because many Kenyans in the village who suffer and end up in hospital, even out of the conditions they live in, are finding themselves not belonging even to any scheme. And the only scheme becomes a member of parliament. And it is really trouble, especially now with this COVID situation. So I'm thinking of a law, really, which looks of a social fund, which deals with the social aspect, and whereby Kenyans are able to donate, even from the grassroots, and are able to pay up. The county governments who are now under devolution are in charge of health have tried. Some places they have to pay 500 every year. And those funds could not really function simply because the amount of money people had paid could not really cater for the expectation. One of the worst nightmares which we have not really covered in this is the private hospitals, and I have really now a problem with the private hospitals. I have friends who own private hospitals, and they have been very awful, and they have saved very many lives. When the systems in the normal public hospitals fail, and somebody needs urgent attention, especially after an accident or if they don't have NHIF, or if they can prove they can be able to fundraise or can make a deposit to those hospitals. But again, when it comes to the scheme, sometimes there are very serious allegations of corruption, how these schemes have been channeled to individuals' pockets. So we need a situation whereby we first promote the government facilities so that this money can be paid into a government facility, because it has a system of monitoring and the expenditure of the monies. But when you channel largely this money to private hospitals, which you have no problem with, and they should belong, and NHIF should recognize them because of saving lives, a lot of these investors who are doctors, instead of now building the hospital more with these funds, they put them into other businesses, and the health system suffers. So if we had a way of, if you have paid money from the health scheme to a private hospital, then it should enhance that particular private hospital to improve its facilities. There should be a way of making sure this money, which is contributed socially and for the benefit of everyone, continues to grow that sector, and make sure that even the private practitioners using this particular fund uses it to develop the hospital further. If it didn't have ICU, to have an ICU. If it didn't have specialized machines, for that particular investor to first invest in specialized machines. But when they get this money, it ends up in real estate, it ends up in other investments, and we begin losing the original purpose. So I'm looking into a situation whereby we really amend this law at third reading to capture what the president first thought when he decided to come up with universal health care, and to make sure that we have a good precedence, a good practice which has worked very well in another country, similarly of similar economic situation of others, or countries which have emerged from being third world, and has been practiced and applied there. In the event we don't have such, then we should be the first ones to develop it in Africa, so that we have a model which other countries can copy and whereby we can have a healthy nation, we could have people recover from serious ailments, that they could be able to have their hospital bills paid. The tragedy when somebody is detained in an hospital and the bills can't cover, and then this particular scheme, the health scheme we have now, is unable to, pays very little. It ends up complicating the matter for that family. You detain that person instead of them being useful. And the more you detain them, the more the bills grow, and the more the MP has to raise money to make sure that his constituency is out of hospital. So I really, Madam Speaker, think we need to capture what appears in the memorandum of objects and the reasons that this is going to be universal health coverage, and for real, it must cover all Kenyans. I know the President of the Republic, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, has been very keen on this. He has asked the counties which have been successful, like Makueni, to work on it, and that's why now even the former CEC
on top of my list is Honorable Sankok, and if I recall very well, you've spoken to the bill. Okay, let's have Honorable Ndindi Nyoro.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me time to contribute. And Madam Speaker, because we are talking about a health bill, I'm just from Kiharu, attending what we call Masakaya for two families. That is Mama Wajiro and Baba Maina, and I pass my condolences to the family. Madam Speaker, this is a very important bill from where we sit, and I've been listening here to many contributions from my colleagues. And Madam Speaker, from the onset, having perused the bill, I think it is inhumane for us to try to penalize people who may not be able to contribute to the fund, Madam Speaker, because as you know, and majority of us know, our country is currently bedeviled economically, and Madam Speaker, it will not be good for us as the representatives of the people to pass a bill that seeks to penalize, especially the contributors, when they fail to do so, Madam Speaker, because we know and understand the times on which we are living in. Madam Speaker, something else that has been going round in my mind is the way in which we treat our funds, Madam Speaker. That is the NHIF and the kind of a mutual fund, like the NSSF. Because, Madam Speaker, it is far from proportional when it comes to the contributions. Madam Speaker, there is no way a hustler out there, Madam Speaker, a hawker, for example, a matatu driver, pays around 500 Kenya shillings, Madam Speaker, and you find other people, Madam Speaker, who have got a higher income capacity, paying slightly the same or slightly higher. It is also not good example, Madam Speaker, that even in this house, commensurate to our salaries, Madam Speaker, we don't seem to pay the rightful amount that we should be paying to NHIF, Madam Speaker, to support other families, not just our families. Because when we talk about pooling resources together for something like health, you don't do so for yourself. We also do so for others out there. Madam Speaker, I also want to suggest that even us and other civil servants, Madam Speaker, should actually not be insured with other private entities. We should all trust NHIF, Madam Speaker, so that we lead by example, that the fact that we are supporting and especially domiciled within the government is capable and able to come in when we need, Madam Speaker, an input in terms of health. And therefore, Madam Speaker, we should have a law in this country that directs all the public servants to only be insured through the public fund, that is NHIF. Madam Speaker, there is also something else that we must borrow from other economies. Because when we talk about a fund like NHIF, mutual funds like NSSF, Madam Speaker, these funds, if you go to a country like Japan, whereas our country we have borrowed in excess of 100% to our GDP, and we keep giving examples of countries and economies like Japan that have borrowed even in excess of 200% what we fail to tell Kenyans and to explain to Kenyans is that most of these debts that big economies have, Madam Speaker, is actually indebted to their own funds. A country like Japan, they have borrowed, yes, more than Kenya in terms of debt to GDP ratio. But, Madam Speaker, such a country borrows from their equivalent of NHIF to the equivalent of NSSF, Madam Speaker, because they have domestic money lying in their funds. And this is because they have been able to enhance the collection of these funds, Madam Speaker, that actually participates also in the growth and development of these economies. Madam Speaker, if you look at equivalent of NHIF in the countries that I've given examples, like Singapore, like Japan, Madam Speaker, these are countries, and these are funds, Madam Speaker, that are able to participate even in terms of infrastructure of the health sector within their economies and their countries, Madam Speaker. Because the aim of such a fund should not just be dispensing hospital bills, Madam Speaker. It is also to look at the supply side of the patients, Madam Speaker. And by the supply side, I mean they invest in areas like R&D, they invest in innovations, Madam Speaker, that will lessen the pain of the patients, Madam Speaker, and that comes as reprieve, Madam Speaker. Even beyond the funds, if you look at the kind of innovations happening in countries like the US, Madam Speaker, actually, number two from the fintech, it is technology, Madam Speaker, that is around the health sector, trying to look for remedies to many of the diseases and ravages, Madam Speaker, bedeviling our people. And a fund like NHIF should take a lead role, Madam Speaker, in funding innovations that are around the health sector, because at the end of the day, these innovations comes to help them, Madam Speaker, and especially through the many bills that they participate in paying. When you have a solution, Madam Speaker, it is much better, and especially preventive solutions. But, Madam Speaker, I stand here as a member of Parliament, and especially having been elected using our former party Jubilee, Madam Speaker, that promised Kenyans, the President himself, something that is called Big Four Agenda. Within that Big Four Agenda, Madam Speaker, there was something he told Kenyans called universal health care. Madam Speaker, I am just from Kiharu, that is a mirage. It collapsed immediately after he launched. Madam Speaker, something else, and I'm voicing many of the issues that we get from the people we represent. This regime took the details of the aged of this country, those who are above 70 years, they put them on cash transfer. Madam Speaker, from that time, the Kenyan people are asking whether this was a political gimmick, because this regime has never added even a single person aged over 70 years and above to that register, Madam Speaker, after President Uhuru Kenyatta was elected. We want to remind this government that there are many people who have now reached 70 years and above, and they should qualify for that cash transfer, Madam Speaker. These people, Madam Speaker, who are also very good for our country, should also be helped by the government, by government taking or shouldering the burden of paying their NHIF. As I might wind up, Madam Speaker, not just the universal health care that collapsed. Whatever the President promised alongside universal health care, manufacturing is moribund, Madam Speaker. Something that he called food security, we only saw C.S. Munya going around the country in barazas after we passed laws in this country, Madam Speaker, but the money is yet to reach the pockets of our farmers. I say all these things, Madam Speaker, because they are intertwined. They are intertwined because when you have money in the pocket, you are able to cater for your health needs. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, at the collapse of this economy, Madam Speaker, being administered by this regime, our people are poorer, our farmers are poorer, Madam Speaker. They have criminalized enterprise, and therefore manufacturing, Madam Speaker, is moribund, as I said before, and our people can hardly afford to take care of their health. We want this regime to know that when you bring such a bill, all these things are intertwined. You need to look at the economy and all the other things that are a part and parcel. But lastly, Madam Speaker, we have been seeing our health CS every evening come and tell us about some statistics. I want him to know that this statistics is about the people of Kenya, those who are being ravaged by the coronavirus, Madam Speaker. And alongside the statistics he gives us, Madam Speaker, he ought to start giving us the statistics of Kenyans who are getting vaccinated every day.
Honorable Ndindi, your time is up. We are moving to... I'm giving you a minute to wind up, Honorable Ndindi. I'm just warning you that we are moving to another business. So wind up in a minute. No, just wind up instead of carrying it forward. Give Ndindi the mic.
I can use.
Now you have put mine.
I can speak with all I think.
Honorable Sanko, keep quiet. It's Honorable Ndindi's
Madam
time.
Speaker, I was winding up with this point. At such a time that you are faced with a pandemic, every serious government and the leadership of those governments is engaged on how they can vaccinate as many people as possible. In the US, we saw you are actually being gifted 100 USD when you get vaccinated for new people who are getting vaccinated. Unfortunately, in our country, instead of the leadership concentrating on availing resources and importing technology and importing vaccines, Madam Speaker, they are spending all the time they have on planning succession. Madam Speaker, the Kenyan people are angry. The leadership of this country should wake up and do what they ought, provide vaccination to the Kenyan people. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, we will continue with this debate when it comes back to the order paper. And for now, the Honorable Jaldesa moved a notice of motion for adjournment. And Honorable Jaldesa, it's your time. Thank you, Madam Speaker. You have 10 minutes to move it.
Thank you.
And members, each member will have 5 minutes to contribute.
Thank you. Well noted, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me an opportunity to highlight this very important issue of national importance. Madam Speaker, the issue of drought has reached a very alarming levels in 25 counties of this country. Madam Speaker, this is due to poor performance of both the 2020 short rains and the 2021 long rains, which was poor across the 25 counties I mentioned. Madam Speaker, due to this, late onset of both seasons, low average amount of rainfall in most counties, rainfall poorly distributed in times and space, we are now witnessing the cumulative impact of these two poor seasons. Madam Speaker, 87% of counties report household return distance of 20 to 23 kilometers to water sources, making it over a total of 46 kilometers, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the livestock distance to water point has generally worsened. It is now about 25 kilometers, which is 25 one way and 25 the other way, making it 50 kilometers. This is an increase of close to 20% from the last year, around this time, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, severe deficit of vegetation is recorded in the entire Isiolo County and the Lagdera constituency of Garissa County, Madam Speaker. That is not to say it is the only counties affected, but this is the worst affected. And I am sure, Madam Speaker, those members who have watched television yesterday and the day before will have seen the sorry state where our animals are now feeding on paper, Madam Speaker. And I'm really saying the people of Nairobi and around this environment are blessed, because even this afternoon we had a heavy rain. How I hope we will receive the same soon, Madam Speaker. It's our prayer. Madam Speaker, poor condition of pastures is also reported. Madam Speaker, our cattle, sheep, and goats prices have become so low compared to previous drought period around this time. Madam Speaker, the terms of trade, especially the price of maize, where it is the term of trade. For example, when farmers from Wajir brings their animals to Nyeri and sell to the people of Nyeri, the prices are not comparable, because the price of maize is high, whereas the price of our livestock is low. Madam Speaker, several schools are on the verge of closing down. Already in Tana River, 2 schools have closed as I'm presenting this. And many other schools in part of Laikipia, Isiolo, Wajir, Garissa are likely to do so, Madam Speaker. We have lost life, Madam Speaker, due to lack of water. I know water is a devolved function, but as national leaders, it is our duty to bring this matter to the attention of the nation, Madam Speaker. Just to give an example, 3 weeks ago, in Sericho Ward of Isiolo South, in a place called Modogashe, we lost a 25-year-old man where a shallow well collapsed on him and he lost his life. Madam Speaker, we are likely to lose more lives if an urgent intervention is not received. Madam Speaker, 2 million persons are at risk of starvation from these 25 counties if something is not done very urgently. Madam Speaker, our livestock are dying, and it will be a bit late if we don't start an offtake intervention by the government to buy those animals from the farmers. If they wait another 1 month, Madam Speaker, they will end up buying crops which will not help the government nor the farmers. Madam Speaker, this is likely to negatively impact the economy of this country because livestock sector contributes 12% to GDP. Madam Speaker, therefore, my prayer or my proposal is for an urgent intervention, including declaring drought a national disaster. Number 2, Madam Speaker, we urgently plea for a collective intervention by the national government, the county government, the non-governmental organization, and the private sector. Same as what, especially the private sectors have been doing, an initiative such as Kenya for Kenya, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we seek this House to enhance budget for National Drought Management Authority so that they can increase the household that will benefit from cash transfer, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the same organization, NDMA, can buy haze for our cattle. Madam Speaker, they can buy food for our people, because I don't know the last time we have received the government supplementary. I think it's almost the whole of this year we have not received. Madam Speaker, it is my prayer that this House will listen to our plea. I know when I was presenting this, some members, including the majority leader, were saying it has started raining. We appreciate that, yes, Nairobi and other areas have been blessed, but I really want to urge the majority leader to start touring this country so that he can appreciate what I am talking about. Madam Speaker, we don't even have the wildlife to eat. They are dying. People now probably will start eating stones. Therefore, Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I will request my brother, Honorable Sankok, to second. Thank you. Thank you.
Honorable Jaldesa, you don't need a seconder. Thank you. But the Honorable Sankok was actually next on the list. And honorable members, I understand the importance of the matter at hand. We have time limitation of time because each member has 5 minutes, and I have a total of 26 requests. So if you can mind the other member, just take 2 minutes, really, to speak to it, and then everyone can be able to say something. Honorable Sankok.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I do appreciate a show in the neighbor Lala. Where is NDMA, Honorable Speaker? Because they are supposed to take care of these areas, Honorable Speaker. Where are the people we pay a lot of money as weather forecast department so that they can focus for us, so that we can plan ahead, Honorable Speaker? Honorable Speaker, if we can plan in this House and allocate money so that we can feed those who will eventually are affected by the drought, Honorable Speaker, why don't we instead empower the same communities so that come drought, they are already empowered, Honorable Speaker? If we can plan to buy them a sack of maize each, cooking oil, and powder milk, why can't we buy for them maize seeds, jembes, and fertilizers in advance so that we can empower them, Honorable Speaker? Honorable Speaker, if we can provide drinking water for them, why don't we provide irrigation water, Honorable Speaker, noting that we have a lot of water in Kenya that is lying above? There is Mount Kilimanjaro, there is Mount Kenya, there is Aberdare Ranges, there is Mount Elgon that have water above, that you only need piping system to take to most of these lowlands, Honorable Speaker, and we'll have irrigation, Honorable Speaker. Because why I'm saying this is the drought in Kajiado, Narok, and northern Kenya, Isiolo, Moyale, Marsabit, and so on. Is it worse than the drought that is in the Middle East, like in the Qatar and others? Honorable Speaker, the point is no. It is because these areas have been marginalized for a long time through session paper number 10 of 1965. It is high time, Honorable Speaker, as we organize ourselves, as we organize to declare this drought as a national disaster, as we organize to feed them this year, Honorable Speaker, let us also organize and prepare ourselves in advance so that in future we don't end up with a perennial drought every now and then and people facing starvation, Honorable Speaker, because we can easily turn our lowlands and drylands, Honorable Speaker, to areas like Libya and Israel, Honorable Speaker, if we put in place measures that will assist, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, our people are really facing death. Our livestock. You know, Honorable Speaker, because you come from Narok South, specifically a place called Loita, where there was that brave Moran, and you are related to the same Moran, who killed that white man, who tried to take a bull from him, Honorable Speaker. You know the story. You know those cattle now are dying in large numbers. You have seen that we are migrating all the way to Mao Forest, Honorable Speaker, risking spread of diseases, Honorable Speaker, and people are losing their livestock. There are people who have lost 80% of their livestock. Imagine losing at once 80% of your livelihood. Imagine as a member of parliament, if today you are told your salary will come but minus 80%, Honorable Speaker. This is what these people are facing. So, Honorable Speaker, Madam Speaker, I really plead with this House that let us support Honorable Jeldeza in this move. We declare it a national disaster, Honorable Speaker, because Jeldeza, congratulations for bringing such a very important motion to this House. She is the most powerful woman in this republic, being the Secretary General of the Pastoralist Parliamentary Caucus, the only caucus with 1 of 5 members of parliament. Congratulations, and we will support you, and I hope the whole House, including non-pastoralists, will support us in this. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I do support.
Honorable Wahungu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity. First, I want to thank Honorable Jaldesa. The responsibility of our nation, Madam Speaker, is to provide security and food to its citizens, Madam Speaker. It is indeed embarrassing that in this country, we can't feed the citizens of this country. Madam Speaker, we have climate change. And Madam Speaker, what Honorable Jaldesa has mentioned, it is not something new. We expect the government to have planned. We have the Meteorological Department, Madam Speaker, which is supposed to have focused on this. Madam Speaker, there is an American philosopher, Benjamin Franklin. He said failing to plan is planning to fail. The planning purposes, the responsibility is the government. And we would like to empathize with our colleagues, pastoralists, particularly those from the northeastern region. I had an opportunity to visit there. I didn't know that the majority leader had not gone there because he was a minister for lands and finance. I expected him to have gone there. When you're in those regions, Madam Speaker, you will think you're not part of Kenya. In fact, what they say, when they are traveling, they say you're going to Kenya. I had an opportunity as a consultant for European Union where I went to Mandera, I went to Garissa, I went to Wajir. You will think you're not in Kenya. And because they are part and parcel of us, Madam Speaker, the government has a responsibility to allocate budgets to those particular areas, particularly when it comes to this drought, the National Drought Management Authority. This authority is there. But when it comes to the level of funding, Madam Speaker, it is given something very insignificant. They cannot mitigate on these issues of drought, Madam Speaker. I want to call upon our colleagues as we are here today. When you read the Constitution, Article 95, it's very clear. It says National Parliament, National Assembly can deliberate and resolve on any matter of national importance, like what we are discussing today. So we call upon our colleagues to expedite measures and declare drought as a national disaster in this country. The import of doing this, Madam Speaker, it will attract more funding, it will attract even the donors and even the non-government organizations. And wherever the NGOs are, they should move quickly to those particular areas, Madam Speaker, so that they can save them and save their livelihood. Madam Speaker, at the moment, when you look at the livestock, which is their critical livelihood, Madam Speaker, some of them are dying. When you have a malnourished product, Madam Speaker, when you go to the marketplace, they'll give you the price of a throwaway price. This is something that our colleagues are facing. And Madam Speaker, in this country, there was an element of livestock insurance. How far did the government go with livestock insurance? Because farmers are losing their livelihoods, Madam Speaker. And insurance will have been a remedy to help in mitigating this risk. As we speak, Madam Speaker, we are here today. This parliament is a budget-making house. And this suffering must stop. When you look at the issue of SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, Mr. Speaker, feeding the hungry, food security in this country. When you look at the Jubilee Manifesto, when you look at the Jubilee's Big Four agenda, the issue of food security was given a priority. You can't preach water and drink wine, Madam Speaker. If you are saying issues of food security, you must put mitigating strategies. You must give it heavy funding. When it comes to the issues of livestock, when it comes to issues of food, in this country, Madam Speaker, Trans-Nzoia, where I come from, farmers are also suffering. When it comes to inputs, the government is supposed to provide subsidized inputs, Madam Speaker, if at all it is serious when it comes to matters of food security. And when it comes to emergencies like this, the county government is the first line of defense. Because among the money that they are given, Madam Speaker, emergency is there. The national government itself also has an emergency kitty. We are calling upon the national government, the county government, to move with speed, Madam Speaker, to utilize the emergency funds and help our colleagues to mitigate the risk of this drought. I thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support.
Well said, members. I'll remind you again, if you can take a shorter time so that we accommodate many more people to speak to this, the better for everyone. Let's have Honorable Chachu Ganya.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I really want to join my colleagues in really highlighting this crisis that we are facing as a nation. Madam Speaker, over 4 million pastoralists in more than a dozen counties are facing serious food insecurity. The body condition of our livestock are really deteriorating. This is due to increased distance they have to go for water and pasture. Madam Speaker, the cost of water in most of these areas is really increasing. Madam Speaker, the serious tension and conflict over these shared grazing resources. Madam Speaker, pastoralists generally are having a very, very challenging time at the moment. Madam Speaker, even most of our boarding schools, which depend on water tracking, are almost being closed down in most of these areas. And even thousands and thousands of children, Madam Speaker, are really suffering from malnutrition and due to food insecurity. Madam Speaker, most water points in these areas have dried up, and as a result, pastoralists are really losing their lives and also their livelihoods. For this reason, Madam Speaker, it is really important.
Honorable Koskei, you are improperly dressed and you should not be in the vicinity of Parliament. Dressed like that. Go on, Honorable Chachu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, drought is not an emergency. It's not a disaster. Drought only becomes a disaster and an emergency if we fail to plan for. Madam Speaker, in 10th Parliament, I sponsored drought management authority bill, and today it's an institution. So, Madam Speaker, I've been around these issues for some time. But when we fail to plan, when we don't invest in drought management interventions, when we don't invest during good time in water resource management, when we don't make our food secure by providing necessary interventions that we need to produce food, then it becomes a disaster. It's basically failure to plan and failure to intervene at the right appropriate time is when drought becomes an emergency and becomes a disaster. And if as a country we invested in these ASAL counties in terms of water interventions, putting up necessary water facilities, water points, whether they are ponds, whether they are dams, whether they are boreholes, strategic boreholes, Madam Speaker, it will not be a disaster. Madam Speaker, even now we are talking, I heard Honorable Sankok mentioning about questioning what NDMA is doing. What can they do? They have no funds. As a house, we don't appropriate funds for them. They are willing to intervene. They are in all our counties. They have the necessary drought preparedness plans in place, but they cannot intervene simply because they have no funds. We have failed as a house and as a government to provide necessary funds for this very critical entity that is tasked with the management of drought in this country. Madam Speaker, we need to invest in our livestock. If we save this livestock, and we save our livelihoods. Madam Speaker, if we invest in terms of animal feeds, in terms of hay, in terms of water provisions, in terms of veterinary services, we will save these animals. And these animals is what's going to save the livelihoods of these pastoralists even after the drought. Otherwise, there's no point even to save them if they have nothing, if they have no livelihood to support them anymore. They just become destitute, living in these town centers, depending on food aid and relief food. Madam Speaker, we need to invest in animal offtake programs. Some of these animals still have good body weight. KMC should come in and invest in animal offtake. Madam Speaker, we need to invest in strategic water points, strategic boreholes, where we have pasture at the moment and where we have no water. And this we can do by drilling, also by water tracking where necessary, because it's about saving lives and livelihoods. And Madam Speaker, we should invest in cash transfers to our elderly people, to the most vulnerable members of our communities. Madam Speaker, if these services are done in a timely manner, we can save the lives and lives of these pastoralists, of 4 million Kenyans who are food insecure and having a serious crisis in their life at the moment. Madam Speaker, we also need our county governments to come in and invest and make drought management a priority. Drought management is a priority at the moment. Because if you can't save your own people, your own lives, there are no development that you're going to plan for them going forward. Madam Speaker, we also want international community, the donor community and other stakeholders to strongly come in and work in a coordinated manner with the National Drought Management Authority, so that in a coordinated way, they're able to intervene in all the sectors that are required. I support, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Oundo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And let me congratulate my colleague from Isiolo for bringing this special motion to discuss the issue of drought in this country. Honorable Speaker, it has been a predictable cycle that after a certain number of years, we have a drought, some that is severe, some that is mild, some that is manageable. But in all cases, Honorable Speaker, it's untenable, it's inconceivable that in the 21st century, with advanced technology, weather prediction and trending methods, that we are unable to predict when the drought will hit, which parts of the country drought will hit, and not prepare and have mitigation measures to elevate such kind of a situation. Honorable Speaker, I have been lucky to have traveled the entire northern eastern Kenya in various capacities as a consultant, and I have come face to face with the hardships they face. I hope I've not been there since I got into Parliament in 2017. I hope devolution has come and brought some change. Honorable Speaker, there are very many things developed governments can do to mitigate these measures. Honorable Speaker, each financial year, we give county governments a lot of money. We hope they're able to account. At this particular time in the day, we should not be talking about water scarcity in northern eastern Kenya. We should not be talking about lack of mitigation measures. Honorable Speaker, agriculture, livestock is a devolved function. County governments have got a lot of money. Those counties, Honorable Speaker, benefit exclusively from the equalization fund at the exclusion of other parts of the country. This is the time where leadership is called upon. Honorable Speaker, yes, we will complain, we'll blame the national government, but at the end of the day, we, the people on the ground with a devolved function, must start questioning what are the achievements of devolution in so far as disaster management is concerned. Honorable Speaker, as I stand here, there has been rain failure all over the country. My constituency, we have lost a lot of crop. We have failed crop. Honorable Speaker, it is a matter that now requires urgent attention. I sincerely believe with the time, we should be able to resolve these issues. Honorable Speaker, we are suffering, we are paying for the sins of false promises, lies that Jubilee government told us since 2013. They proposed they'll have rain-fed, irrigation-fed agriculture, up to now, 0. They promised us bumper harvest at Galukunanu, up to now, 0. Honorable Speaker, all the best they can do is to make calls to Equity Bank and give 15 billion to go and invest abroad, instead of using that money to invest in this country and help solve some of these disasters. Some of these lies, Honorable Speaker, are not going to take us anywhere. Kenya must confront the situation. This House is one that makes budgets. This House is one that appropriates funds. It is a call to our colleagues and all of us that when it comes to budget-making process, we should not cede our powers to the National Treasury, but make budgets that allows us to predict such kind of disasters and prepare for them. It's a shame. Countries that have got no arable land are able to feed themselves. You never hear them calling for food supplies. You never hear them calling for donations. Honorable Speaker, this is an indictment of the leadership of this country since independence. With those few remarks, I support.
Honorable Paulata. Member for Laikipia North.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I take also this opportunity to thank my sister and my neighbor. Speaker, it's a high time we call a spade and not a big spoon. Just like other speakers has alluded to previously, failing to plan is planning to fail. It is true, northern Kenya, and actually parts of Rift Valley and Central, including Laikipia North and Kieni, are ravaged by a serious drought. Speaker, we've had 13 straight months without a drop of rain in those areas. But again, Speaker, going by what is happening, especially in Laikipia and parts of Isiolo, it is true there is a lot of resource-based conflict. But Speaker, if you look at Laikipia today, Laikipians are suffering. People are being killed. Our livestock are being pushed out of Laikipia simply because Isiolo and Samburu has failed to plan. If you look at Laikipia North, Speaker, the ecological zone of Laikipia and Samburu and Isiolo is more or less the same. But because there is planning in Laikipia, there is range management, there is range rehabilitation, those who have failed to plan their rangelands are causing havoc in Laikipia. And Speaker, I thought devolution was meant to address these very unique problems that are very unique to every county. And I don't think in this time and era, it makes any sense to say that pastoralists are killing each other because of scarcity in resources. Because, Speaker, as much as I understand, there is nobody's cow that eats a dead body so that you can be told people are killing each other so that the cows can eat those dead bodies. It's very painful, Speaker. Where I come from, my people cannot plan, they cannot till their land, they cannot manage their livestock simply because those who have failed to plan are causing havoc. Secondly, Speaker, emergencies and droughts. It is true, schools are being closed. Children cannot concentrate. We are told in this country that there is a feeding program in schools, but in some schools in Laikipia North, for example, which is classified under arid and semi-arid lands, has not seen a coin of the school feeding program for the last 12 months. And Speaker, it begs an answer. Where is this money going? Because I know this money has been allocated to the Ministry of Education. Some counties, somewhere are enjoying that food. And you know, Madam Speaker, for the pastoralist kids, most of them went to school during the Moi era because of the milk, the Nyayo milk. And even now, some children are going to school just because of that one meal they get in a day in school. So even as the government, as we urge the government to declare drought a national disaster, they should actually take very bold steps to make sure that there is food in schools. Secondly, Madam Speaker, I think it's the high time the counties plan according to the uniqueness of our counties. Water, for example, is a very unique and a very important thing among the pastoralists, Madam Speaker. I know many Kenyans love nyama choma, but this nyama choma don't grow from coffee trees. This nyama choma can only be got from the pastoralist cows. And if pastoralism is neglected, if there is no infrastructure to ensure that the pastoralists look after their cows in a profitable manner, then, Madam Speaker, this resource-based conflict will become a vicious circle among the pastoralists. And sometimes, Madam Speaker, I really doubt whether there are some beneficiary of this so-called resource-based conflict, because it is also very interesting. I don't know who is conspiring with who, that among the pastoralists, the drought always comes a year to the elections, and all the hulalabos comes with the drought. So, Madam Speaker, I think it's the high time the government stop giving excuses as to why there is conflict among the pastoralists and address and take the bulls by its horns. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I beg to support.
Member for Wajir East, Honorable Kasim. Just give him whichever is nearer, if you can't find his. Okay, take the next one.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to give my comments and observations on this matter, which is of great significance to the people of pastoral communities in
What's happening?
Honorable Speaker, thank you for the mishap. Anyway, but generally, thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to articulate on this matter, which is affecting the people of Northern Kenya. Honorable Speaker, the drought that is ravaging the people of Northern Kenya is affecting nearly 25 counties. It is a problem that is affecting the entire livelihood of 8 million people. 8 million people are affected, and their livelihoods have been affected by this ongoing drought in this part of the country. Honorable Speaker, children are no longer able to go to school because the schools do not have water. The livestock movement from where they are domiciled, and they are crossing across border, even to Somalia, across inter-boundaries, and even causing disputes among communities, are also some of the issues that have been realized as a result of this drought. Honorable Speaker, it is important that NDMA, which is mandated to provide technical information to plan so that they can be able to give the necessary information and predict.
Honorable Kasim, you
Yes.
need to wear your mask properly.
Okay. So that they can be able to predict on this drought, because drought is predictable. Drought has also timelines. Drought has also certain ways of, even the vegetation cover can be able to give. But if there's no proper planning, if there's no proper information sharing on the imminency of the drought, then what we are going to do as a nation is nothing. So, Honorable Speaker, 8 million people and their livelihood is so far been affected. Children are not going to schools. Movement of livestock from boundary to across to Somalia is huge. My constituency, there are a number of wells which are already providing water. There is high population density in those boreholes. And they are staying there for nearly 24 hours before they can get access to water. Honorable Speaker, some of them have even crossed towards Somalia. Some of the areas that have so far been affected in my constituency is a place called Zitawario, where even schools have been closed. A place called Handaki, which is towards the end, towards Somalia, is having high livestock population. The entire livestock population, because it's bordering towards Somalia, is hosting a huge number of livestock. Others, which are in Wajir County, have moved to Isiolo. And even yesterday, as we were talking on this matter, we were arbitrating against between the pastoral communities of Isiolo and Wajir West. This has been attributed as a result of movement and failure to accept the norms and the culture of the resource utilization which is available between communities and which has been in place. Honorable Speaker, I request the executive to declare this as an emergency. Some of these interventions that can be undertaken quickly is an emergency offtake. You know it very well, the executive have taken over of Kenya Meat Commission lately, and it's under the supervision and the works of the Kenya Defense Forces. It may not have been its mandate, but the idea was to support so that they can have a definite market for people in pastoral Kenya, from pastoral communities. So we will urge the government to remunerate properly and give adequate finances to the KDF-manned Kenya Meat Commission so that we can have an adequate offtake for people in northern Kenya, and they can have cash so that they can be able to pay for their school fees, they can be able to purchase food for their stock. Honorable Speaker, the other intervention that has been there is national drought management is purely remunerated in terms of even the budget provision which has been given for it to discharge its functions. They are not having any money. We will urge the executive through the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Minister for Treasury, to provide and to make the contingency drought fund to be rolled out so that they can be able to intervene on issues of drought. Honorable Speaker, emergency boreholes will also be erected in a strategic area so that the livestock can be able to access water. School feeding programs should also be initiated, and children can be able to access their food. Honorable Speaker, water tankering is a great significant thing that should also be undertaken.
Honorable Mizigi Mnene.
Asante sana Bispika kwa kunipatia hata mimi fursa ili niweze kuchangia kwa mswada huu ambao ni muhimu sana katika nchi yetu, na natangulia pia kwa kumpongeza Mheshimiwa Rehema Jeldesa kwa kulifikiria hili na hata kulileta hapa ili tuweze kulijadili. Ni kweli kumekuwa na ukame na hata tunahofia kwamba tutaanza kupoteza watu wetu kwa ajili ya njaa na hata mifugo. Mimi nikitoka pale kwa kaunti ya Taita Taveta, tuna ukame mara mbili. Wa kwanza unasababishwa na kukosa mvua na maji, na mwingine unasababishwa na wanyamapori, kwa sababu sisi tumezungukwa na mbuga ya wanyamapori, na basi sehemu chache zile zimenyesha mvua na watu kulima, basi wanyamapori wale wanavamia na wanakula kila kitu kile kiko pale, na basi wananchi wanabaki bila. Na swala hilo basi linatupatia hofu kubwa sana, kwa sababu kama kutaendelea kuwa namna hiyo, basi wale wanyamapori watatoka, na wakikuta kumekauka namna hiyo, watatudhuru na wataumiza watu, watajeruhi wananchi, na watu watapoteza maisha, kwa sababu tayari tumeshaona ndovu wanatoka, wanakuja mahali wananchi wako, wameanza hata tabia za kupasua matanki ya maji, kwa sababu kuna ukame, na wakikosa chochote kile wanaenda kwa yale maji, wanaanza kuvunja matanki ya maji. Na kwa hivyo itakuwa vyema nikiunga mkono wenzangu waliotangulia kuongea, na niseme basi tulitaje hili kama janga la kitaifa ili liweze kuchukuliwa uzito unaostahili na liweze kushughulikiwa ili tusipoteze maisha, kwa sababu tayari tumeshapoteza wapendwa wetu wengi na hili janga la corona, na hatutaki tena kuwapoteza kwa sababu ya mambo ambayo tunaweza kuyafanyia kazi. Asante Bispika kwa fursa hii.
Honorable Sosion.
Yeah, Honorable Speaker, thank you. I wish to rise to support the motion and thank Honorable Jaldesa for placing it before this House on time. Honorable Speaker, there are a lot of conceptions that government should be able to predict, and looking at the trend of climate change, and Kenya is a signatory to the same, and looking at the Sustainable Development Goals agenda about climate change, there is a lot of already adequate information about climate change, that in case of rains, it is going to be extreme and there will be floods. And we have seen it in Europe, experiencing floods that have never seen before. In case of drought, it is going to be extreme. And in Kenya, drought will be here. It's here to stay. And it will expand beyond the 25 counties. And in fact, scientists are predicting that by the year 2050, Kenya will not be able to produce any food. So really, that should tell us empirically and scientifically the direction that you are headed to. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support that without any delay, the government should declare drought a national disaster so that it can enable the government and the necessary agencies and NGOs to focus and direct themselves and address themselves towards mitigating the effects of the drought. The current existing data about the devastating effects in the already affected counties is very disturbing. That even the social life, schools cannot progress, and livestock are dying. These are very unsightly activities that should not be witnessed in this country. We don't need the meteorological department anymore. What is the disaster preparedness of the government to intervene in this? Government at all levels, the devolved and the national government. Honorable Speaker, let me talk about livestock. Livestock is the greatest victim in terms of drought. And we are witnessing a lot of livestock dying. We are talking about poverty, lack of resources, yet we have the resources in the livestock. Honorable Speaker, this is the time that the right government agencies should guide communities, should guide the pastoral communities so that they can sell off the livestock that they have at the moment, reduce their numbers, so that the funds accrued from such sales can be used to mitigate other effects of drought like purchase of feed or food. Now that, Honorable Speaker, the Ministry of Defense has taken up the Kenya Meat Commission, then we have no reason to talk about livestock dying when we have a whole KMC under the military. This is the time that the President and the Commander-in-Chief should be able to direct and ensure that no livestock dies in this country because of drought. It is possible to mop up excess livestock. Even in regions where drought has not affected, it is also possible to begin mopping up excess livestock and translate them to money. Honorable Speaker, it is even after declaring it a national disaster, and even before, it is also possible for this House to take it up on its own accord through the Departmental Committee of Agriculture and also the Department of National Security and that of Defense. Because let us not wait for disaster. Let us begin working and begin developing the framework of mitigation measures. Honorable Speaker, I support this motion, and we should be able to see the government taking the lead in initiating measures to mitigate the effects of drought, to save Kenyans from starvation, and also to save livestock from dying, and also to save our crops. Honorable Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Member for Lagdera. Honorable Garane.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this important adjournment motion regarding the drought situation in the affected counties. Madam Speaker, the drought situation in the 25 counties mentioned is a very serious issue. And unless some intervention, very quick intervention is done, we are likely to see humanitarian crisis. I will say humanitarian because it is that bad. I've just returned from the constituency, and already the livestock have actually, they have not been covered by the media, I know, but they have already started dying, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the major sources of water for majority of these counties are water pans. Almost, I can say 95% of these water pans have dried up. Animals are trekking for long distances, 50 kilometers and more, to go and get water. So, Madam Speaker, the situation in northern Kenya and most of these counties is really, really bad. Madam Speaker, the failure of both the December 2020 rains and the April-May 2021 rains has worsened the situation. But the sad thing, Madam Speaker, is that agencies that have been mandated, to look into these issues, knew that the rains have failed. But up to now, there is nothing that has been done, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there is no response. These agencies know, and actually, National Drought Management Authority monitors and gives early warnings. They have the data, but there's no response at all from these agencies, Madam Speaker. And that's why, if immediate interventions are not done, then we will have a whole population of livestock depleted. There's no pasture. Schools have closed. We are having some serious malnutrition in young children because these people depend on livestock. The livestock cannot be taken to the market because there's no market for the livestock. All of them have very weak bodies, so you can take them to the market. Madam Speaker, these are very, very serious issues, and I think the Ministry of Devolution and the Ministry of Water have serious blames for these issues. People are always talking about water being devolved. Yes, water is devolved. What the council are getting and they are sharing is about 15%. The 85% of the resources remains here at the ministry. In fact, they don't even do much, but at least they should be responsible enough to come and do something in emergency situations like this. Do water tracking. The Ministry of Livestock needs to do, off-take. They need to come up with some off-take plans so that this livestock can be sold now, and then when the situations get better or when we get rains, then this, the owners can have some income, and then they go and repurchase this livestock. Madam Speaker, this crying has become a cycle. We always come here, complain about drought every other season. But there is no, long-term plans for this, issue, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, you can imagine we will have around December or around November, we will have the rains. The rain will come and destroy, homesteads. There will be floods. Those water will be wasted, which means we need to have some serious plans. These agencies need to come up with a way and a proper way of harvesting this rainwater, because that is the only way we can resolve this issue of water problem in these counties. Madam Speaker, what we seriously need now is to do, provide emergency feed for the livestock. They need to do water tracking. They need to do the off-take plans. They need to, save lives because the situation is dire. Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I support this motion. Thank you very much.
Honorable Buyu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And from the onset, I'd like to thank Honorable Jaldeza for bringing the attention of the National Assembly and the country at large to this impending problem of drought. Madam Speaker, I come from Kisumu County, which obviously is not one of the 25 counties, but I know that with the climate change and with the erratic rainfall or lack of rainfall, I know that the rest of the country is obviously also going to suffer from drought. Madam Speaker, when you're speaking about drought, my mind goes to one man in this country who stood out about 8 years ago and sent out a cry and a warning to the country so that we'd all pay attention to the small little things that would help us save this country from things like drought and excessive flooding. Madam Speaker, that man is no other than Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. Madam Speaker, when we are talking about climate change, we are talking about what we are seeing now. Today we are seeing rains in Nairobi. It is August, and we know that under normal circumstances, August is not supposed to be a rainy month. But because of climate change, we are now seeing rains. Madam Speaker, because of erratic changes in the climate, farmers are not able to plan. And yet we know that Kenya is predominantly an agricultural country. And we know that the farmers heavily depend on rain. And when there's no rainfall, obviously what we are discussing today is bound to happen. Madam Speaker, when we have drought like is being experienced in the 25 counties, many other sectors are affected. We have education being affected because children cannot go to school. We also have, Madam Speaker, health sector being affected because obviously with hunger and malnutrition, there's bound to be more diseases. We also have the security sector being affected because we know that people begin to compete and fight for the little water pans or the few water pans that are available. So, Madam Speaker, indeed this is an important issue that we are discussing, and I support Honorable Jaldeza and call on the government to actually declare this a national disaster and pay more attention and put more effort in curbing this disaster before it goes countrywide. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Kumontare Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to put my voice in this issue. And Madam Speaker, the drought is severe in some part of this country. In Samburu County, Madam Speaker, even the livestock are not right now in Samburu. They have migrated. They have gone far places. And if you look at, Madam Speaker, a conflict even we have in Laikipia and even in some part of Isiolo.
Honorable Kumontare, you have only 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, I think the government should move with speed because the situation there is there. And if no step taken, Madam Speaker, people will die, leave alone the livestock, because livestock have already died. And even the education will not be able to, the students are not able to go to school in those areas affected. And Madam Speaker, I think the government is already aware of this because there are government representatives in every county, every sub-county, and even the location. So I think, Madam Speaker, it's only the government should wake up and do the necessary for the people to be safe. And Madam Speaker, I just want to say, in part of Samburu, the situation is worse. And I think even the CS, Dr. Matiang'i, went to Laikipia where our people are there. But to my surprise, Madam Speaker, the same government destroy the economic life of other people. Cows are being killed. The government does not understand that there is a problem. And we want to urge the government, Madam Speaker, to understand that there is a serious problem they have to solve, not killing the livestock of pastoralists. That is our economy, and the government should not destroy it. It should come and help the people and save their lives. Otherwise, Madam Speaker, because of time, I want to support and thank Jaldeza for bringing this issue. It's really a very serious issue, and we want the government to take serious and urgent measures. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Members, unfortunately, we've gotten to the end of the debate, and is the nature of a special motion. There is no question, and I believe the authorities have heard the issues raised by the members. And with that, honorable members, we can now adjourn. Honorable members, the time now being 7 p.m., this House stands adjourned until Wednesday, 11th August 2021 at 9:30 a.m.
Hawezi isha leo. Isha leo saa tano.